Thank you. Got it. Thank you very much, Mike. So let me say hello to everybody. Mike, Farwell, Alan Barnes, Roy Bigsby, been in here for a while. Martin Hild, ATR Bear, Ted, how you doing? I think I mentioned you, Ray, but I'll mention you again, Ray Powell. So good to see everybody in here. A lot of photography news going on. And D Moots, how you doing, buddy? Let me know if you'd like to join. I'll send you the link. A lot of photography news, a lot of camera news going on. Let's see, Panasonic with the S5 II, and the reviews are pretty good on as far as I can see on the camera. A lot of people saying it's a game changer. I don't know how, but with the phase detect autofocus, maybe everything's picked up for Panasonic. I know that was one of the things that everybody complained about before. Canon R8 rumor out there being an APS-C entry-level body or something like that. Don't have any other information about it, but if you're a Canon shooter, I'm sure you're keeping up with it. You can let us know in the chat. And for us Nikon shooters, wow. You know, how long have we been waiting for some news other than a Z30 or something like that? Nikon's strategic leak of the 85 1.2 via the warranty cards and the 35 1.8 boxes. But they confirmed it with a development announcement. And I think that was just to say, okay, yeah, the jig is up. You know about it. So we're going to mention it. It's not a development announcement. I'm sure the lens is already in production, has been. I think that at CP Plus, we'll get an official announcement on that lens and the 26 2.8 pancake lens, which I'm not a big fan of, but I know there are a lot of people out there that looking for a lens that's that small, even though we have a 28 2.8 already. So interesting times. CES didn't provide us with a lot of information. You know, that's not what CES is for typically for the camera folks. They just go there to show off what they've already announced or what they already have on the table, literally. So CP Plus looks like it's maybe going to be a barn burner for us. Looking forward to that. It's just a few weeks away. And of course, drum roll, please. Everybody's waiting for the big Z8 announcement. Will it be a development announcement? Will it be just a regular official announcement of the body? Or will we get anything at all? You guys can weigh in and let me know. I do believe we're going to hear something about the Z8. But seems like everybody's dropping cameras. You know, Canon, I think, had a boom year last year. We had that topic on the live stream a while back. And Sony, of course, keeps dropping cameras, the A7R5. A lot of people seem to be happy with that. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people. I know there's a lot of chat going on. How much of an upgrade is it from the R4? But so who knows? There's a lot to talk about. And, oh, by the way, we're going to have Baron from Photography Discourse drop in with Mr. Ronald Pollard. Baron just did an interview with him, and they're going to come on live. And if you guys have any questions about the interview or anything else for those gentlemen, they'll be in here in a little while, and we'll just wait and see what they have to say. But, yeah, a lot going on. So we'll just have to wait and see, wait for CP Plus for all the big announcements. And I'm looking forward to it. And if it's not a big announcement event, well, guess what? It's rant time again. So, Long Rider, how you doing, buddy? David Brandsma, Michael McDermott's in here. James, Jim from J-Rod Photo Art. Gregory, how you doing? All right, let me catch up with some of your comments already. I think everybody's just saying hello from wherever they're at. D. Moots is in Florida. He's enjoying himself, I'm sure. Even though we're not having bad weather up here, it's not quite like what you're having or experiencing down in Florida, I'm sure. Here alone, don't have any friends. All right, so this is Bring a Friend Wednesday. I just thought, you know, if you have photography friends out there that aren't aware of what we do here, maybe you'd invite them, see if they drop in, and maybe they might enjoy the community as much as you guys and I do, and waiting to see If we have anybody that brings a friend, I know it's difficult. You can only ask people if they would like to join. Long Rider sent me an email. Hey, Jim. Long Rider, I did get your email. Wait a minute. No, I didn't. Looking now. Yeah, I did. On Backcountry Gallery, Z9 Guide Update Firmware 3, and the Osprey photos. Yes, I did. I haven't even looked at it. I'll be honest with you, Jeff. I've just been busy. As you guys know, last stream I was talking about plumbing leaks. I got all that taken care of yesterday. Now I got a cat over here wanting attention. He knows once I start talking that I'm not going to pay attention to him. But I got all my leaks fixed. So the plumber came yesterday. That's all taken care of. So I don't have to go empty buckets today during the stream. And I can sit in here and concentrate on having a good time with you guys. Let's see. Who shot a roll of film today or this week? Jim's asking. J-Rod Photo Art. Oh, yeah. Michael McDermott. You guys are getting inundated with rain out there in California from north to south. More so now in the north, I know, but some big flooding going on and everything else out there. It's pretty wild. Hope the best for you guys. I know that you need the water, so the West and Midwest is getting plenty of water right now. Let's see. Yes, Jeff, my daughter is a plumber, but she's in Kentucky. I'm in Connecticut, so it would cost as much to fly her up here to fix it as it would have just call a plumber. So Mike saying he hopes Lake Mead gets a lot. I saw all the reservoirs out there that on the news yesterday, and I think they're talking about being at about 80% on their water levels, and that's a good thing. And the aquifers are filling up too, so that's a big deal for the West Coast. Jim's going back to the dam maybe on Sunday for Eagle Photography. It's Conowingo Dam. Anybody near James or Jim, J-Rod Photo Art, Jim, I gotta find out what you'd rather be called, James or Jim. Anybody near Conowingo Dam, you might be able to link up with Jim out there. Very hot day in South Africa, Stuart says. It is that time of the year for you guys, but then again, you don't see real cold weather there. I know it cools off, but you don't see the same cold weather that we get down in South Africa. RS, good morning. Jim is fine. All right, got it. Greg Wilson says, here in Northern California, it's becoming an island. Yeah, man, you guys are getting some water. You guys are really getting some rain, and it's not stopping from what I've seen. It's just going to continue to, these storms are continuing to roll in out of the west, hitting the West Coast. Darren Francis from Vancouver. How you doing, Darren? Kevin Nordstrom, a balmy 50 here in Ohio. Crazy winter so far, or lack thereof. Same here, Kevin, in Connecticut. This has been a really strange winter. We have received some rain, but we haven't been inundated with rain, although there is a chance here towards the end of the week we're going to see a lot more rain, but no snow, and that's a great thing, man, because the winters up here can be brutal, even in Connecticut, believe it or not. But this winter has been no snow and unseasonably warm, so that's a good thing. My wife's really happy about that. I'm happy about it, too, because it definitely helps with the heating bill. And, man, heating oil just went through the roof. And Connecticut just raised the prices for the electrical grid. So, man, got to get out of here. As you guys know, I've been trying to do that. So hopefully that'll happen the next few months. Martin Hild says, pretty warm here. Not sure we had any frost this year yet. Yeah, you know what? That's the same here, Martin. I think we've had a couple of, maybe 2 or 3 frosty mornings, but that's been about it. Again, very unusual for us. Stuart saying they need water. Wow. Our dam in our province is at, what's that? I can't catch it here. 14%. Wow. Yeah, I'd say you guys do. D Moots is in Florida laying tile, working on the condo. All right, buddy. Thanks for dropping in. You can just listen to us in the background. Save power, shoot film, Jim says. 60 degrees in Alabama. Alabama. I got a lot of folks or a lot of friends that live Alabama, Georgia, southern Georgia. Let's see. Trying to catch up here. Kevin says, wife wants to move to Florida and I want to move to Tennessee near the Smokies. Yeah, Kevin, I'm going to Tennessee. We're going to be on the outskirts of Nashville. So not all the way over near the Smokies, but man, it's a beautiful area. I know. Yeah. Smokies are awesome. Long Rider says Gatlinburg is awesome. Yes, it is, but that's over in the same area. Once you get over to Eastern Tennessee, you begin to see you get into the Appalachians and, it's just beautiful over there, but we don't want to go that far east. We're going to stick pretty close to Nashville, not in Nashville, but somewhere around Nashville, hopefully with some property. I want a garden. I've wanted a garden for years, and that'll give me a chance to actually tend a garden. So officially, I am an old man. Come February 1st, I will be talking to Social Security to begin drawing my Social Security. And I know a lot of people will say, wow, it's awful early to start drawing Social Security, but I have a military pension, which is extremely nice, which provides health care as well. And my wife has done extremely well in her life working, and she'll have a lot higher Social Security pension than I will, not to mention both of us with our 401k. And why just pass up all this money right now? So we've discussed that, and I'm going officially into the old man club. But maybe it'll give me more time to really start playing with this and photography, things I want to do. All right. Finally getting my Z6 II fixed by Nikon. Camera stopped recognizing my cards. $408 bill coming my way. Wow. Yeah. That is an ouch. It's a shame that wasn't in warranty at the time. Let's see. Jim saying, I've been lucky with my camera repairs, none yet. Hopefully they stay there or they stay rare. Yeah, I hope so too, Jim. I've been lucky as well. And there's a quote of the day, Kevin, you're never promised tomorrow. So enjoy now while you can. I agree with that 100%. Mike Farwell saying, welcome to the club, Chuck. Retirement is awesome. You get to travel when you want, where you want. Yeah. And we had discussed this, my wife and I, but after talking to a couple of financial managers and our accountant, all of them recommend that I begin drawing now since I have a military retirement. And when my wife does decide to retire, I don't think she ever will. I'm beginning to wonder, but she says she's working till she's 70. And anyway, I'll be able to, my Social Security will be supplemented with the spousal Social Security that she draws, meaning, they'll make up the difference for us. So, I'm 62, Stuart. 62. Be 63 this year. So watching the chat go by. It's buzzing by. Thanks, Ray. Welcome to the club. And I get a free bus pass. All right. That's true. It opens up a lot of things to me here in the U.S. Let's see. Yeah. The problem with retiring, Roy says, his wife has a long list. And that my wife does. There's no doubt about it. She lets me know daily what my requirements are. Let's see. All right. So all that, thank you all for the good retirement wishes. Yeah, we're gonna make the best of it. Let's see. Oh, Stuart, you're 2 years behind me. All right, man. You know, you may want to check into that. I don't know what your situation is. For us, it works out because, again, I have military retirement. She's going to have a lot larger Social Security benefit than I will. So there you go. Oh, 10 years. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I saw the TWN. I didn't know if it was 2. All right. 10 years, Stuart. Well, you're not that far behind. Let me tell you that time goes fast. I mean, it goes extremely fast. Hey, Mr. Vahagen's in here. How you doing, V? Vahagen's been knocking some great videos out. I know you guys have probably seen them. You need to get over there and check them out. His latest is really funny. A parody with Frono's photo on the phone. I thought it was great. I think you guys would enjoy it if you haven't seen it already. So I know Claire's School of Photography. We've Vahagen first mentioned her, and I did the same. Especially anytime it's a smaller channel, and I'm a small channel, so therefore I have a motivation to help others as well. But she sent me a nice. She responded to the last live stream because we did give her a shout out, and I think I invited her on the show. I like what she does. I like talking to all you folks across the pond. I really do. It's great to see everybody and, in here in the chat. And again, I'd like to get more of you folks on for the live stream. Again, get you in here in the panel. That's what makes it fun. We got a lot of people in here chatting, a lot of banter going back and forth. But so anyway, and again, the invitation is open. If you'd like to be in here live on the panel, you have the means to stream, and all it takes is a laptop. You can use the laptop audio and video, but it's nice when you have a setup for streaming. But if you'd like to be on the panel, all you got to do is send me an email, and it's just a matter of me sending you the link, and you're here. So again, the invitation is open. That's what this channel's all about. 3-day weekend coming up. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. When you're retired, you don't notice it. Every day's a weekend. Well, not necessarily, because then you have things to do at home and whatever, and your wife gives you a list to keep up with. So it's really not quite a vacation. All right. Hey, Yaman, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you in here. I know, I don't know what time it is there, but I know it's not the most convenient time for you. Vahagen, she's up to 386 subs. And when I shouted her out, she was at 97. Amazing what a little shout out can do. Absolutely. And it motivates. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. So I have found a number that evidently I am happy with YouTube as far as subscribers go. I'm at 839 and it hadn't budged. So, all right. So this time, or not this time, but let's shoot for Christmas 2023 or 2024 of making it to that 1,000 mark. And give me plenty of time to get there because 839 is hanging on for some reason. Let's see. Let me catch up here with some of the photos. Hey, Albert, good to see you. Let's see. Roy talking about the 85. Nikon dropped a little display on the 85 f1.2. Last year, the images it had one. Okay. You're talking on the on their shoot lens chart. No. Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. RS. Yep. 7-day weekend coming up. Yeah, I wish I could say it's a weekend, but again, my wife makes sure that I don't get bored. Uh, yeah, I would like to see her on too, Vahagan. Maybe we'll get her to drop in one day. We can talk to her about what she's doing over there, her business, and all that. So Jim shot a roll of 120 yesterday. For all you film shooters, you need to talk to Jim and Albert, man. Especially Jim. He's doing a lot of film work. Who is Seraphim Photography? Here we go. Hello, sir. Just got home to do invoices. So I saw you in my feed watching how you Nikon people live. Well, I'm Nikon. I'm not opposed to any brand, and we got a lot of other brand shooters in here. So I don't know what you're shooting, but you're more than welcome in here. We just have a big chat every Wednesday for about 3 hours. Yeah, it's a live stream that long, but that's what we do. Welcome to the community. And as my wife would say, since she bought me this shirt, let me just get up here. Here we go. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh, my wife got me that T-shirt for Christmas, so I've got to show it off every stream. Let's see. Thank you, Jim. Yes, everybody smash the like button. I appreciate that. That does motivate me. It really does, folks. You may not believe it, but if you don't have a channel, you won't recognize it. But if you have a channel and you start getting likes on what you're doing, it really does motivate you. Thanks, Kevin. Yep, I think we may make it by then. Terry Newman from the Flatlands of Norfolk, UK. Welcome, sir. Welcome. Let's see. Somebody has to pay your Social Security. I feel like I've paid for it already, Jim. With as much money as I've given them that I won't see back. Well, maybe I will. Maybe I will. Thanks, Greg, for hitting the like button. Let's see. Yeah, you like my new signs. There you go. So my AP Studios neon sign back there is too bright. And I have a dimmer for it, but I need a battery for the controller, which I'll get sometime today after the stream. I got to run out and get some things. I will pick up a battery so I can dim it so it's actually blue. You can see the ceiling above and on the side of my head. There's plenty of blue coming off the sign, but the camera just doesn't pick it up real well. It's too bright. My little on-air sign back there. So these are some of the things I found on Amazon, and my wife was like, oh, you need to get that. So I did. So we're trying to make some changes in the studio here. The reason I keep it dark right now is because it's a total mess back there. You don't really want to see the mess behind everything. But I'm going to make some changes in the studio. And then maybe when I get down to Tennessee, we can really build out a studio. And that's what I'd like to do. This is going to become my occupation, I think. I'm just going to continue to do this, or at least as long as it's fun. And so, excuse me, so far you guys are, hang on a second. And so far you guys have made it extremely fun. I just want to keep it that way. So, all right. Jay Kimmer saw a bumper sticker today. Get back to work. Millions are depending on you. Yeah, it is funny, but it isn't, because there are so many people out here looking for employees. I mean, that's one of the reasons you have a hard time anywhere right now, is they don't have any employees. And, I don't know how people are surviving. I mean, I know how I'm surviving. I do have a military pension. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Let's see. I enjoy watching all about all cameras, but four third for 18 years recently. Now Fuji. Well, congratulations on the recent Fuji move. Fuji's fine. We have some Fuji shooters in here, so absolutely. And you guys bring up any news that you've picked up Come on, what's the problem here? Okay, I think we are back. Wow, I have no idea what happened. No idea whatsoever what happened. Huh. Yeah, I have no idea what happened. All right. Sorry about that, folks. I didn't pay my M&M bill. Yeah, exactly. Actually, I got some more M&Ms. My daughter, my middle daughter, sent me M&Ms recently. All right. All right. Thanks for the comms check. It seems like we got everything up and running again. I don't know what happened. I really don't. Now it looks like my audio's low, though. Crazy. All right. That's the first time that's happened, and I have no idea why. Now, I've got all kinds of. I may have had somebody had said internet. It may have been an internet issue. No doubt about that, I think, because I see everything is rebooted. All right. It was his fault. uh, yeah, no, I don't think he even knows who I am. So I think we're good there. All right. Thanks for the audio check, guys. All right. That was weird. Weird, crazy. Oh. All right. So where were we? We were all over the place as usual. I did see the comment come in by, let's see, is it who is Seraphim Photography? No, sir. I don't think you had anything to do with it. All right. All right. Good. Thank you very much for the sound check again. So we were back up and running. Crazy. That was weird. Really weird. All right. That's right. That's right, Ray. I did see that. U.S. aircraft grounded. Yeah, ATC went down. It did. It certainly did. I think it's back up now, and they're resuming flights. But you're right. It did. They crashed. So somebody tied me into the air traffic control system or something. Jim, I don't think that it's still. I don't think the aircraft are still grounded. I thought I saw a post or a news bit that it was back up and running. All right. Check everything again. Everything looks good on both sides. All right. Another reason to change the studio up here so I can get all these cables. I'm always worried I'm going to kick a cable and unplug something. All right. All right. We are back. Yeah, that would have been inconvenient if Ronald and Barron had been in here. So anyway, they're going to be in here in a few minutes. They'll be back. They'll be in here to talk about the interview that Barron did with Ronald. That'll be interesting. And of course, you guys are welcome to jump in the middle of that, ask any questions or whatever. Jim, next motocross shoot. You know, I could have gone a couple of weeks ago, but again, tied to the house, something else going on. Plumbing seems to be the typical problem here. But I didn't go. But there are going to be many more because we're having unseasonably warm weather, as I guess you know, all of us here on the East Coast. So that may be an opportunity here in a few weeks. Yeah, I love shooting motorsports. I really do. Whether it's, we have, what's the name of the racetrack up here in Connecticut that everybody goes to? Road course. I can't think of the name of it, but I've wanted to go out there and shoot as well. All right. So we've had our morning mishap now with a crash. I'm just happy that the stream kept going. Restream kept streaming, so we didn't have to go through that nut roll of everybody trying to find the new stream. Yeah, Jim, I think you'll find the thing about motorsports is whatever it is, it's easy to get the shot. No doubt about that, especially with cameras today. I don't care what brand you're shooting, but the real technique there is to get interesting shots, something that isn't the ordinary. And that's what I was always looking for when I was shooting motocross. You'll find the locations that everybody stands because they're just the best locations for action or whatever. But at least they think it is. But there are plenty of other places around a track that you can go and get even more interesting shots because nobody goes there. Nobody ever shoots at those locations. So that's one of the things to do. And then, you know what, the behind the scenes things going on in either in the paddock, if it is a paddock, or in the pits, depending on what genre of motorsports you're shooting. And they make great images as well. So a lot of people pass all that up for, there's a big crowd at one corner and everybody goes there thinking, well, that's where I got to go as well. Let's see. Michael, how do I update all my used Fujifilm X-Trans camera bodies on the latest firmware updates? Just wanted to know exactly how to do it without damaging anything. We're all the Fuji experts out there. Somebody help Michael out with that. That's the great thing about this community is there's so much experience with you guys over here in the chat. And that's something I think a lot of people overlook is how much experience is in here. I've had Albert on the show talking about all the adapters and things like that. I've had Roy on the show many times, and I know you guys love Roy. I love Roy because he's got every Nikon camera ever made, I think. But all that great experience. So tap into it. I love seeing the sidebars going in the chat room that are completely disconnected from the stream, at times. But that's what this is all about. It's just, everybody gets to go to one location and chat with each other, hopefully develop some friendships that may even develop more if you have an opportunity to get to meet the individuals. Let's see. Thanks, Jim. So Jim's just saying, if you have a YouTube channel, let me know and I'll go out and subscribe there. By all means, drop your channel link in the chat, or at least as much as it will let you or allow you. But make sure that, and this is for everybody in this community. That's one of the things about a community is communities have people that help each other. So if you know of a YouTube channel out there that's worth looking into or watching or whatever, the content's great, or even maybe it's a small channel, then drop a link or drop a note in the chat. Let us know so that we can go there and help them, support them as well. Albert, here you go. Albert talking about dozens of videos explaining how to update Fuji camera on YouTube. That's the great thing about YouTube, isn't it? You can go there and get anything. You can find out anything. You can repair your car. You can even repair plumbing leaks if you have the tools to do it. But I didn't, so I couldn't. But it's nice to know that you can tap into YouTube for so many useful things. Not all the drama, but just useful things. With Fuji, wireless app works well to update. PM me if you want any help or walkthrough. Thanks, Todd, for stepping up, man. That's the great thing about this. Again, that's what we all should be doing is helping each other. YouTube is a new encyclopedia. You bet it is. All right. So, you Canon shooters, what's this R8 all about? And, has anybody seen or touched an S5 II yet, Panasonic, or is it just in review? I don't even know if I think the pre-order links are up on, they were on B&H, so it may be elusive right now. Nobody has it in their hands. Maybe it hadn't started shipping. And then all you Nikon folks, the 1.2 85 millimeter. What do you think of that? I'm curious to know what the price is going to be. You know, I'm not a rich man. I got to sell to get the next. And I'm curious to know how much it's going to be. I've been saving because I was really saving for the Z8. But who knows? You know, the Z8, I think we'll see something in CP Plus. But depending on what the Z8 is, I may opt for the Z6 III. And like I said before, then I'll have all three versions of the Z6. So I don't know which it's going to be. But if the Z8 is a super high megapixel, whether it's 61 or more or greater, I don't know that I'm interested in it. I really don't. I'm hoping that isn't the case, but we'll see. Yeah, that 85 1.2 is going to be a game changer, especially for Nikon. You got an 85 1.2 autofocus lens. And I think a lot of this has to do, and this has been in the chat of some of the other videos I've noticed, it has to do with that new Z mount. And Canon, of course, with the new RF mount. You know, a lot of lens designs have begun to change. So I'm looking forward to the 85. I just hope it's in a price range where I can actually buy it, because I've held out not buying the 85 1.8, just guessing that Nikon was going to do an 85 1.2 like they did with the 50. And I really like what the 50 does. So, and that's a creative lens for me. It's good studio lens. You can shoot it wide open, outdoor portraits and things like that. And I plan to shoot it wide open. That's the reason I'm buying a 1.2. I'm not buying it to stop down to f8 for everything. Let's see. You know, I just saw another adapter. Albert, chime in here. There's another adapter out there. It's a bit slow, but you can take manual focus lenses and autofocus with it, because it moves the lens in and out on the adapter to focus. Maybe not the fastest thing in the world. I just saw something about that. Maybe Albert can chime in and talk about it. And that would be beneficial for everybody, no matter the brand. You enjoying the D850? You know, I enjoyed my D850 too, Mike, but I mean, there is a difference between it and the D810, but the D810 was a fantastic camera. It really was. I think it just got kind of sandwiched between the D800, all the hype when that came out, and then the D850. But D810 is a fantastic camera. Terry Newman. Excruciating waiting for Nikon. Don't want the bulk of the Z9. Keep looking at what's there now. R5, R7, XH2, A1, but realize I need to wait. Yeah, at this point, I think we are so close. It's worth the wait, but nothing wrong with the cameras that you mentioned. And I really like what the R5 does. I have, even with all the overheating hysteria that turns out that maybe it wasn't quite as bad as everybody thought it was, but that's YouTube. You know, we got to make mountains out of molehills. Oh, there you go. So you choose to go with the Fujifilm GFX 100 as my landscape, streetscape, and night photography instead of continuing to wait for the Z8. So far, it has been a joy to shoot and complements the Z9 well. Yeah. You know, the GFX cameras have been fantastic. You know, I think a lot of people they kind of laughed at Fuji when they were initially announced, but so many people that have picked them up have basically loved those cameras. And it is a different camera. It's not for everything, but man, They've sold a bunch of them. I know that. Oh, here you go. So Seraphin says his camera store in Orlando said they'll be getting the S5 too very soon. That's good to know. Anybody that's looking for it. Yeah, a lot of people have said that for a while now, talking about PF lenses. And some will say that Nikon has a lock on it because of their technology in lens building, glass manufacturing, and so on and so forth. But I don't see why all the others couldn't do it. The PF lenses are, man, they've been fantastic so far. And the 500 was so hard to get after they announced it. It was a year before most people could even get their hands on it. Again, Nikon, why? 2 to 600 is a lens everybody. I keep saying everybody, but so many people are waiting for. I think Nikon's behind the times on getting that lens out. That's terrible. Anyway, no explanation. And of course, Nikon doesn't give us any. However, you can go, I was going to say you can go buy a $17,000 lens, because that's out, but really you can't, because you can't get your hands on one. Roy, I know Roy has been waiting for that 2 to 600 for a while. Yes, Sony has a 2 to 600, but Jim says Canon doesn't have a 2 to 600. I did not know that, but okay, that's news. Yeah, and we know that Sony has a 2 to 600 because Jim, I think you used it on your Z9 while you guys were out at Conowingo Dam. Todd says Canon has their version of the PF lenses. I believe it's called DO, more of a budget lens with a stop down aperture. Well, are we talking the same construction or whatever? We're all the experts. Long Rider says he'd like to see Nikon make a 600 PF. I have the Sony 2 to 600. It gets shot at 600 all day long. Yeah, you know what? That would be a cool lens. I'd like to see that as well. Maybe I'd kind of like to have seen that rather than the 800 PF right off the bat. But either way, you're not going to get your hands on one anytime soon because, well, we won't go into that rant. Let's see. Seraphin saying, these days only interested in retro style for personal inspiration and paid work. My OM5 with the 150 1.8 equivalent doesn't get a second look when I bring it in for concerts because it looks like film. You know what? I never thought about that. But man, it's so hard to get any kind of cameras into concerts anymore. They've got the Hawks out, even in motorsports, without press credentials or something. It's hard to get big lens into. When I say big, I'm talking, I used to try to carry the 80 to 400 in for those shows or those events that I didn't have media credentials. And more than once, they told me no. Personal experience with the mega adapter. Mr. Albert Jimenez. My personal experience with mega adapter is that it works best with the short lenses, less than 100 millimeter, and has trouble with longer ones, more than 100 millimeter, owing to their bulk and weight. Okay. Leon. Really hope you guys get a Z8. I got sick of waiting, so moved to a different system 2 years ago. I was going to move back at a later date, but never bothered. Well, there you go. And as long as you have something that suits you, there's nothing wrong with that at all, Leon. Nothing wrong with it at all. Long Rider. Lynn's reach is like pizza and sex. It can never be enough. I don't know. I don't know. For me, I'm not a big pizza fan. I'll leave it at that. So Roy says he likes the images more from the GX50 than the GFX. I think I said GX50, GFX50 more than the GFX 100. Yeah, I understand, Mike. And you know what, though? I wish you could experience the Z9 EVF. You know, it's remarkable in my opinion. It's as good as the OVF. It really is. Not to mention that you can raise or lower the brightness on the EVF. It's really nice. Diffractive optics, same type of technology as PF. Okay, Todd. I didn't know. I didn't know that they had anything like the PF, but if it's the same thing, basically, okay. Is that what the 800 F11 was? By the way, I'm just curious. Let's see. You know, there is some truth in that, Long Rider. As I grew up, I think there was one pizza place anywhere near us, and that was Pizza Hut, believe it or not. So that was the only pizza that we experienced growing up in Kentucky, at least from where I was. But yeah, I don't, but I'm not a big pizza fan to begin with. And if I'm going to eat pizza, so this is where my wife and I differ. So we can't split a pizza unless I'm going to compromise. I like thin crust pizza. I like lots of sauce and lots of cheese and lots of junk on it. My wife's strictly cheese pizza and it can't be thin crust. So there's always a battle if we're going to eat pizza. Pizza Hut is not pizza. Oh. Jim says he loves New York style pizza. Great place near me, just as good as New York. Yeah, you know, here's the other thing up here. I noticed that everybody up here in New England, you know, even in Connecticut, everybody's Italian. Whether you are or you aren't, you're Italian. And there must be 8 million Italian restaurants up here, mom and pop, and some are good. The one thing I haven't found any good as far as Italian restaurants go is spaghetti. You know, I know true Italians call it gravy, but the spaghetti sauce, I haven't found one yet that's to my liking. Let's see. Joe Mack, how you doing, buddy? The new Canon lens. Okay, so you just walked into the conversation. No, I'm talking about the Canon F11 800. You know, the budget lens. Is that DO? Servant says, I miss pizza. I haven't touched a grain in a decade. Yeah, I'm not a big pizza fan. Oh, Long Rider. Leon says our pizzas are crap in the UK. Again, I don't have a dog in that fight when we get into pizza battles because you know, here you go. This will get a charge out of everybody. The best pizza I have ever had is a Chef Boyardee homemade pizza. I don't know why, but that's the best pizza you can get, in my opinion. So there you have it. That'll get a fight going. Okay, Todd. Thanks, man. Now I know. Okay. All right. and it's not a bad lens. I know Simon over at Ordinary Filmmaker had that lens for a while. I know that he sold it now. It's just at f11, and it's just like me shooting the the 1-400 S lens with a TC2 on it. It's f11 at the long end, and low light focusing slows down. Low light images are kind of a pain. So, okay, is there grits? Let's see. Is there a grits topping for pizza yet? I haven't heard of that yet, Ray. However, if maybe I'll mention that to some folks down home. I don't know how that would go, though. I don't know if that'd go over real well. But then again, I don't want pizza or pineapple on my pizza either. So again, I'm not the best judge when it comes to pizza, what would be good or is good or anything else. Sacrilege. You, oh man, you are canceled. Oh, greasy paper liner, 1,000 calories per slice, ambulance parked outside. Yeah, well, you can get that. You can get that up here. You can sure get that up here. So up here, everybody's a fan of Pepe's Pizza, and I guess it's based here in Connecticut. An Italian family in the 20s, I think they began a pizzeria, and that's the talk of the town up here. Why does Simon need an 800 millimeter in a basement? That's a good question. Why do I need a Z900? And it's sitting over there in the same place that it's been for the last 2 weeks. I haven't even picked it up. That's a lie. I did pick it up day before yesterday because I was talking to, who was I talking to? I can't remember right now, but he was talking about buying a Z9. He was asking me some questions, and I had to grab the camera and pull up the menu to answer them. Martin Hill, Italy is not that far. So, that's funny you say that, because I've had a lot of people say that pizza in Italy isn't as good as it is in America. So is that just one of those things that people in America are used to their pizza a certain way and the Italians make it different? I know it didn't originate in Italy either, I guess, is what I'm told. Pizza, that is. Or it was something different. Here you go. Leon, Canon's going for lightweight. Mine just bought the R7 and the 1-500. Hopefully I'll be trying that out soon. So the R7 gets raves from most people that pick it up and shoot with it. And the 1-500, I don't know anything about, but any other Canon folks, and you can come back and report what you thought of the pairing. Yeah, J-Rod just said R7's very nice. Wife makes pizza from almond flour. Okay, it's very good, but still not deep dish real pizza. All right. Sometimes you got to leave all the bad stuff in things to make it really good. So it looks like Baron and Ronald are going to show up. Before they both get in here, I'm going to run to the little boys' room. I will be right back. Let me make sure that hopefully Baron knows he's listening, maybe. Hang on a minute. See if this works. And you guys carry on the pizza conversation, and I'll be right back. And we'll bring in our guest today, Mr. Barron from Photography Discourse. You guys haven't been over to his channel, check it out. And Ronald Pollard, commercial, professional photographer. You guys have met him here many times, most of you that have been in here. And we'll get them in here and we'll start chatting here in a minute. All right, I'll be right back. Fill up my coffee cup, so I have to Okay, I am back, and I think we're about ready to go. I think Ron needs to jump back in. I don't know what happened. He just dropped, but we do have Baron in, and I'll bring them both in as soon as Ron comes back. Excuse me. Time for M&Ms. Mm-mm-mm. So I had somebody email me and or drop a comment. I can't remember which it was about me eating M&Ms or people eating on the show live. I will try to eat quietly, but I got to eat my M&Ms. And Baron, if you'll just let Ron know to try to come back in. I had 2 or 3 screens opened up for Ron, so I tried to eliminate 2 of them, and it just dropped him completely. So, anybody new tuning in or just dropping in that you don't regularly get in the chat or anything, crunch, crunch, M&Ms. Sorry. So you're wondering, what's this channel about? Is it about photography or pizza? Well, it's about anything. And that's just what it is. It's just a round table for everybody to get in and discuss whatever they want to discuss. I opened this up just specifically so photographers could get together, whether it's in the chat room or whether it's you can come on the show and talk. All right. So anyway, it's just an open forum. It's always this way. This is what we do, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, bring a friend, bring other photographers in, because we'll talk about anything. So without any further ado, yes, I can see you, Ron, and I'm getting ready to bring you guys in. So here is Baron from Photography Discourse and Mr. Ronald Pollard.
Yes, I can see you, Ron, and
So, hey, gentlemen.
Hey, Chuck, can you?
We see you both. Thank you, Phil. Yeah, I just got those. I haven't really put them up yet. I got them on stands right now, but I'm going to put it up once I get the studio revamped here. But anyway, Mr. Ronald, how are you doing, sir?
Can you hear
me? A little audio's low. Baron, how are you?
I'm good, Chuck. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Let me turn up my audio. No, absolutely. Thanks for wanting to come on and talk about your chat that you guys had the other day. It was really interesting. Maybe some others that have seen it, maybe they've got some questions they want to talk to you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of the way and let you guys take off here.
Well, Chuck, you're not in the way. We appreciate your channel, and this forum is great, and you always give everyone a chance to speak, and we love that about you and AP Studios, and want to say thank you for that again.
Well, thank you, and you're more than welcome.
For those of you that don't know me, my name's Baron. I have a small channel. It's called Photography Discourse. On that channel, I discuss largely I've discussed Nikon gear so far, but basically it's a channel about photography. I've been a photographer for over 30 years. I did a lot of work in the 90s in the dark room and using strobes back then. And now I do mostly portraits and weddings and events and things like that. And I had a chance to actually meet this guy here, Mr. Ronald Pollard, who I just did an interview of on my channel a couple of days ago. For those of you who haven't seen it, we hope you'll go take a look. it's pretty great to get to hear Ronald's story and what he's done and all that he's accomplished in his life in photography, and also to see some of his work, because we got to put a lot of his work up. He was nice enough to share a lot of his work with us. So, and I gravitated towards Ronald because Ronald and I shoot very similar styles and similar genres. So, and he's just a consummate pro and like has really had a chance to photograph some impressive names. And it looks like he might be having some technical difficulties, but I'm sure we'll get him on here in a minute. And for those of you that have questions about for Ronald or for me about the interview or about my channel or just in general, we'd love to talk that out as well. So hopefully Ronald will get back in here and we'll be able to go from there. In the meantime, while we're waiting for him, I don't know what you guys what were you talking about just a few minutes ago, Chuck? I saw you were talking about the some of the lenses or something.
We've talked about pizzas.
Pizza's good.
We've talked about pizza. We've talked about lenses, and I just kicked it off with, some of the new things that are out there right now in the well, when I say new, I'm talking about things that are coming or just released as far as cameras or lenses or whatever. Sony has the A7R5, which, a lot of people seem to love. Canon, with all their announcements last year, it seems that there's a rumor the R8 will be coming, and it's going to be an entry-level APS-C body. And I think that's good. Even though they have the R10. So I don't know what the R8 is going to be. It's going to be interesting to see. But all this is good news for all of us. I don't care who's announcing cameras or developing cameras or whatever. It's good news to all of us. Rather than being fanboys and not wanting to hear about others, it works out for every brand, because when one brand comes out with something, you can bet the others are working on something similar. So. All right.
I actually completely agree with that. By the way, I think the R8 is going to be interesting. I don't really know where that fits in the lineup, but I'm glad Canon's producing cameras, and Canon's got a proud tradition, and they've been around a long time, and they always push Nikon to do good stuff as well. So I agree with you completely.
All right, Mr. Ronald is back, so let's bring him in.
Okay.
There you go, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
We got an audio problem, Ronald. Can you?
Is it not working? Is it delayed? Is it delayed?
Oh, it's just a little delayed, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of latency in it. Are you on Chrome?
I'm on my Safari. I'm using my phone.
Okay. Well, the Safari, there's always a problem restreaming Safari as far as audio goes. So if this is for anybody
I'll try Chrome.
Anybody that wants to join.
I'll try Chrome. Mm-hmm.
All right. So for anybody out there that wants to join, anytime you want to join, and maybe this is across the board for Restream, I don't know, but at least if you're doing it here, you need to go through the Chrome browser. It seems to work best. We'll get Ron in here in a minute. This is live. That's what live is. Things like this happen. If you guys, anybody that's been with me from the beginning, you guys remember the audio gremlins that I would have. I finally got most of that ironed out, even though today we did have a bump in the road when the video and audio failed. All right.
Yeah. What happened? Did you ever figure out what that was?
I think it was, I think it was a glitch in the internet here.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Ron.
Please tell me this is better.
Man, that is fantastic. That's golden.
Okay.
So Ronald, when you were off, I had a chance to I was just kind of introducing myself and mentioning you and I had this interview and kind of how I had been sort of you and I had met, and how I appreciate your work because we do similar types of photography, and how you're just a consummate pro at what you do, and have had a chance to shoot some awesome titles and awesome folks. And so we did an interview a couple of days ago. It's on Photography Discourse. We expose Ronald's sort of some of the history of his life, how he got into photography, what he's done, and got to show. He was generous enough to show us a lot of his work, which I got to display there. And we hope that you all check it out. But with that, I mean, just want to, Ronald, thanks for doing that interview with me, by the way.
Yeah, Chuck, thank you for having us, man, first and foremost. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for having us, Chuck. And Baron, it was a wonderful experience. Chuck, it's been a while since I've been here on live anyway.
Yes, sir, it has. You've been busy, I guess.
In a lot of ways, I have been, Chuck. A lot of proposals, a lot of consultations, tons of meetings. The life of a professional working photographer, man, is no joke. If you're going to do it for real. If you're going to do it for real.
Right.
It's no joke, man. It's not 9 to 5, it's 24/7 in many ways. And so for me, I just booked a wedding client last night. We just got booked, and I told Baron this the other day, we just got booked to go do some destination portraiture, branding portraits in South Bend, Indiana. So a lot of negotiating, a lot of discussions, a lot of planning, pre-planning, things of that nature, man. So that takes up your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I talk to
Yeah.
Ronald
Yeah.
periodically, and he's always running around. He's got lots
Yeah.
going on, and that's good as a
Yeah.
photographer. That's the best thing that can happen, is you have a lot going on. So
That's a good problem to have. I'd rather have that
Yeah.
problem than the other problems. So anyway, I'm ready with you, Baron and Chuck. Let's go, fellas.
Yeah. So I mean, we just really wanted to kind of come on and just mention that we had done this interview. Hopefully we can, get a lot of people to take a look at it, because I think that I think you'd all enjoy it, and I think you'd learn a lot from Ronald. Those of you that are photographers and aspiring to improve your craft, he's a great guy to listen to, because he's got the knowledge and the experience and the know-how, and also, besides the technical element of photography, that's a big point in this business. The technical side of photography is really just one aspect of the whole thing, and you have to be good there. And the better that you are there, the better it is, of course. But
Yes.
that itself won't save you. You have to really know how to network and kind of market yourself, and get out there and really make those connections to get that work. And it's not easy, and it's not just about being good at photography. Although if you are good at photography and you can do the other, then you really excel. But
yeah. And you're right, Baron. I agree with you 1000%. And it's been a journey, man. And the thing is, too, you have to be prepared to work in obscurity while you produce high quality. And you're not going to always be rewarded immediately. It takes time, and it takes time for people to notice you. It takes time for people to see your consistency, that kind of thing. And so everything you said, I'm singing tenor in the choir you're directing, brother. I really am.
You had a message actually that you had mentioned in the interview about not giving up and following. Maybe you could elaborate on that, because we didn't go into that too much in that talk. What's your feelings on some of that?
Chuck, what I said to Baron in the interview was, I want to challenge people at the top of 2023 to not give up on their dreams, themselves, and their talent, because it doesn't happen right away. It doesn't, quote unquote, success doesn't come right away. It comes in stages, and it comes when you're prepared. For whatever the reason, whatever the photography gods align, and it's always, but you can't, what you cannot do is skimp or skip out on quality. You cannot. That is not an option. So if you're a bird photographer, if you're an animal photographer, you're a pet photographer, if you're a people photographer, put quality out there. And I said that's because you never know who is watching you, who wants to support you. So you give them a reason to support you. Don't give up,
Yeah.
but give them every reason to say, hey, I see this person's talent and gift and their skill. I want to support them, and here's how I can do it. And that's what kind of led to the thing that Baron and I were talking about, the occasion for the interview, Chuck.
Okay.
And team. It wasn't just doing great work. It was something that happened that allowed Baron to say, hey man, let's put this on and let's do this. Let's take care of this. And I want to interview this. So Baron, you can introduce it or I can introduce it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So Ronald had shared with me, Ronald's had a long and diverse career, but something had happened recently that was a step even beyond what he's done in the past. And it was a very exciting moment for his career, and a very exciting moment for me as a friend of Ronald's, because it's very impressive. And so I wanted to interview him to sort of introduce this great thing that has happened. But I think Ronald, I'll let you share exactly what that was.
Okay. So about a month ago, community, I got an email from Google. And I got an email from them saying that they wanted to license one of my images out of the clear blue. So then I emailed them back and I said, let's talk about what that looks like, what that means. So in the course of discussing this with Google, I found out that they had been following me for a while. Chuck, they noticed my work, and then they were following me for over a year. And they were checking out the quality, consistency of what we do. And they found that out, and they said, hey, we want to license one of your images. We want to start with one, because I was like, shoot, take 5. But no, they said, let's start with one. I said, take me. And it was humbling, and it was amazing to have them say, here's what this means for this type of client, this type of work. And it was a political figure. And I'm not at liberty to discuss more detail at this point, but it was the licensing from Google that came my way as a result of constantly working diligently, putting good work out there. So it is true. It's not who you know only, it's who knows you as well. And they discovered my image from one of the news networks that I had done some work for this gentleman. And they said, hey, let's check him out. They saw the image. They wanted to see if we were consistently at that level. And when they saw that, they said, okay, we're coming to you for licensing. And I was like, wow.
You know,
I'm sorry, go on.
I don't want to take away from your point here, but I want to go back to something you just said, because I think it's really important, especially for those that are just starting out. You know, we always talk about it's who you know, and we seem to fall into that belief that that's the only way you're recognized or anything else, or you can get anywhere. But what you just said is kind of prolific, and you don't know who's looking at you and watching you. And it goes right along with what you were saying earlier about put your best foot forward, always be doing your best. And, you know, because you don't know who's out there watching without saying anything. I mean, that goes for even this live stream right now. We have 45 folks in here that are, you know, participating or watching and listening or whatever, but only so many will be in the chat, and that's fine. So my point is you don't know who's watching you. So make sure you know, don't give up, like you said, because you haven't been recognized by what you think are influencers or companies or whatever. You don't know who's out there watching you at the moment. So I just think that's really important, Ron. That's great advice.
Yeah,
And Chuck
it is
and
great.
Baron, and thank you guys for that. But I wanted to also commend Baron because here's another point I'd like to make, Chuck. In a world of competitive frenemies, frenemies, for this man to say, Ron, it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about we. And to take it on to say, let me interview you, because this is huge. You don't know too many people in your life, Chuck, that get commissioned by Google. I don't either. And I've worked with tons and tons of professional photographers. I don't know too many people who get commissioned to photograph the president of the United States. There are some, but you don't come into contact with them many times.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, I've been blessed, and it's humbling, man, to do these kind of things and have this kind of opportunity. When we got the email from Google, and they explained to us what this meant for them and what they wanted to do with it, my wife and I got on our knees. Man, we prayed and praised, and I know I don't want to offend anybody, but that's our tradition. We praised and prayed, and we were like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. It truly was. And so it went well. And I can only tell you, man, that it's consistency, quality, and just putting your head down, working, going for it. And to the chat, loving what you do, because that comes through too. That comes through. So you do have to have the technology, you have to have the technical skills, but you got to have a love for people and a love for the experience. And you know, Chuck, you've been around the world, and Baron, you've traveled a lot, and many of you, all of that stuff comes together when it's supposed to, you know.
Yeah.
So I hope I spoke to what you talked about, Chuck.
And there is a question. Yeah, there's a question there for you, Ronald, which Chuck just put up on the screen.
So Ray, I do think that too many times the conversation is about the gear and whether
Hey,
Chuck, you
Ron,
know where I stand on this.
let me
That's
read
all
the
I
question here real quick, because there
Okay.
are a lot of people that just listen to this, which is great as
Okay.
well. So the
Mhm.
question is from Ray Powell, and he asked, Ron, do you think that modern camera technology builds up too much expectations to get the perfect picture? Yet they don't mention the skills involved to get the perfect picture. So that's the question that Ron's responding to.
Yes, and I want to respond to Ray by saying, Ray, I do believe, depending upon the segment of photography communication you're in, community you're in, there is way too much emphasis on the gear and not the skill set. Way too much. It's not tilted, it's not balanced. I do appreciate what Chuck and them are trying to do on Saturday nights when they're doing the photo critiques, and what others do when they're trying to do the photo critiques. They're trying to say, let's balance this thing out, because I in my lifetime, Chuck and Baron, I was in London, England, when I saw one of the most rarest and most beautiful, phenomenal cars on the planet, a Zonda, a $1.8 million sports car. I saw a Zonda. Now Bugattis I see all the time. When I go to England, or I'm in London, I see the ones that are the James Bond car. What's that car? The Aston Martin.
Aston
Yes.
Martin. Yeah.
I see those a lot. But I've seen two Zondas in my entire life. 800 horsepower. You can have that car, and the speed limit says 60. You don't know what to do with all of that. You can't do
Yeah.
220 miles or 180 miles an hour with a Zonda, and that is definitely meant for the Autobahn. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my point being, so many times the skills it takes to maneuver corners, the skills it takes to hit the brakes at the right time, to accelerate, to shift, downshift, to do all of that stuff, more of that needs to be dealt with, because a lot of these, a lot of these, a lot of the gear is better than the skill sets of those who use them. That is true. I do believe that with all my heart, you know. And thank you, Albert. The fruits of your labor and expertise have been recognized, Mr. Pollard. Please accept my congratulations. Martin, Albert, I do, and others, I do too. I thank you for this. It is humbling, like I said. This is not no false humility. This is something we go home and work. I'm working when y'all are sleeping. I'm working on a skill set. Yesterday, I practiced. You ready for this, Chuck? Yesterday, I practiced with my A1s with the
You're talking about
diffuser panels.
you're talking about your pro photo A1.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. My pro photo A1s. Yes, Baron. Thank you. Because I'm thinking they're moving with me and they're not. I practice with my pro photo A1s, Chuck, just with colleagues around here in my studio. Why? Because I want to be ready before the time comes.
Right.
So I practice at 30% power, 40% power, 50% on up. And I practice at different f-stops. And Baron, I practice at different shutter speeds. And I practice at different ISOs. Why? Because like Cat Williams, you may have 15 minutes to photograph a celebrity. You got to walk in there not guessing. They're going to give you 15, 20 minutes, Chuck.
Yeah, you know what? And you just confirmed something. Well, not that it needed to be confirmed, but there was with Joe McNally talking about shooting Gorbachev. You know, he had like 10 minutes max. The Gorbachev walked outside, walked out in the snow. Joe shot him, and that was it. It was that fast. He didn't have, an hour to talk to him, pose, or whatever. So knowing your craft is so important for those reasons, especially if you're a pro photographer. You have to know your stuff. So anyway, let me get out of the way.
Watch this, Chuck. Watch this, Chuck. And I'm going to say this. When people are paying you X amount of thousands of dollars for 20 minutes of work, no excuses are allowed.
Yep.
Right.
When they're paying you, and I'm just giving a hypothetical number here, everybody. This is when they're paying you $1,500 for 15 minutes, no matter what they're going to do with it. When they're paying you $2,500 for 30 minutes or $5,500 for an hour, no excuses allowed. None. Not one. Not one.
Yep.
Chuck, not one.
No, you're right.
You talk about the pressure. You got to be on it, man. Like red on beans and white on rice.
And that's
you're absolutely right.
I'm sorry, Chuck. Were you?
No, go ahead. I want you to carry the conversation here.
Well, no, Baron. It's an interesting consideration because we talk about gear a lot on especially on YouTube, a lot of gear talk, and it's something I think everybody can relate to because everybody uses the gear. If you're into photography, you use the gear. Seems like I'm not framed very well. So talk about not using gear well. That's me right now. All right, maybe that's better.
You're not in print competition. You're not in print competition.
I can't seem to frame myself very well these days, but that's okay.
I'll quit moving the boxes here. So
that's all right. But I was gonna say, like, I understand, like, the gear talk is like we all love the gear, and I certainly do. And we all have to use it if we're into photography, but there is this point that we touch on sometimes, and I think everybody realizes it, but the gear is not what makes the photographer or the photograph. Like, that is not what it is at all. If it were, then you could just buy a Z9 and be a pro, or you could buy a Z9 and shoot Gorbachev,
Yeah.
That's not how it works. It doesn't matter if you have a Z9 or not. It matters about your skill set and about your portfolio and about also largely about your relationships. So it's just you got to learn. So, and for those people that want photography to be, if you're a hobbyist and you just want to have fun shooting, it doesn't matter. None of these things really matter because you're doing it for fun and you're having a good time, and that's the goal. And if you have a good time, then you've succeeded. And it doesn't, but if you are trying to do this on a professional level, then there's many more considerations, and your skill set needs to be built up. And to that end, like both Ronald and I are sort of big into like off-camera flash and lighting scenes.
Huge.
Which is very different, obviously, than bird and flight photography. Very, very different, very different genres. I know that a lot of and you can tell me, Chuck, I don't know as well as you do, obviously, but I think a lot of your viewers tend to be more in the wildlife kind of
Well, yeah, I think that we have an extraordinary amount of bird and wildlife shooters in the community, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean that, others don't exist. And we tried talking about that before, lighting, and trying to coach some folks that are, natural light photographers. And I understand, a lot of people are natural light photographers because they're afraid of flash. But picking up something as simple as a speed light and playing with that and seeing what it does for you, I think really begins to round your skills out so much more.
Yes. Yes.
And I was going to say, I tip my hat to guys like you, Baron, and you, Ronald, because you guys are pro photographers that are always out there on the spot, having to make things happen. For people like me, that's not the case. So it's easier for me to sit back and take my time or do whatever I want to do. But you guys are what make, the pro photographers, you put in all the effort because you have to be on all the time. There is no, well, let me try this or let me try that with you guys. So you have to do that beforehand. And you were talking about that, Ron.
You have to try that at 1 o'clock in the morning, Chuck, when nobody's around, or at 5 a.m. when you don't have a when you don't have a client, or when you don't have any pressure to perform. That's when you practice, and try stuff, experiment with things, or you push the limits, so that way before the moment you're ready for the moment. And but don't get it twisted. Baron and I both do natural light photography. We both do a whole lot of natural light photography.
Oh,
absolutely.
I mean, I know you know that. I know you know that, Chuck. I'm just saying. Yeah,
well,
we have to perfect that too.
My point is that everybody grows up with natural light photography. When I say grows up, I mean everybody that gets into photography. Of course, that's going to be their first, line of business is, working with natural light or whatever. But again, to really amplify what you do, it's so difficult if you don't practice. You guys talked about it, practice your profession, and that includes lighting. So, I'm with you, Baron. I have lights and I love to play with them. For me, it's an enjoyment just playing in the studio with all kinds of lighting, but I'm going to get out of the way.
Well, one of the viewers, Fel M, made a comment. He said, "These days, it's better to have great editing skills than amazing AF." And I would also this is a little of a segue from what we were talking about, but it's related. I think I would also second that opinion of his, because I feel like, so I'm a darkroom guy originally, going back, like, to me, the photo was made in the darkroom. I mean, it's not entirely true, because obviously if you have bad composition or if you don't compose your photo in a proper manner, then you can't save it in post. Like, it's a bad photo is a bad photo. But
and then there's that.
There's that. But a good photo can either be an average photo or a great photo, and that depends on post.
Yeah. Well,
and I will. And may I speak to that too?
Please.
Chuck, may I? Okay. When that question is asked, I hear several presuppositions that are being spoken to. When I was shooting the F5, I always had great autofocus. What do you mean? See, for me, Chuck and Baron, when I was shooting the D3, I had great autofocus. When I was shooting the N90, I had great autofocus. And you guys know what I'm speaking to. What I'm saying is I depended on me for the autofocus, not the camera. That's what I'm saying. When I was training with Jeremiah Stoiver, who was the Oakland Raiders' longtime photographer, he trained me in sports photography. With the F5 and the D3, when it came out, in the D2X, we had great autofocus then. Now, is it at the same level as today's technology? No, but we were the autofocus, Chuck. We were the composition, Baron. We did that. And so when this technology increased in what they call it, the AI, Chuck, is that what they call it? When that increased, yeah, it makes it easier. But see, that's part of what goes back to that other question. There were two other questions that came up that I want to speak to. It has made a lot of people lazy. They don't work. I'm sorry,
Well,
Chuck. That I know some
no,
of them ain't gonna like that, but it has made a lot of them lazy. They don't, and I don't mean to be politically incorrect, you guys, but it is true. It has made a lot of people over dependent on the camera selecting for you versus you knowing knowing what you want the camera to choose.
oh, well, look, I want to choose the middle ground here for just a minute because I think we can
Hmm.
all come together and probably stop a lot of
Hmm.
bickering and things that goes on in forums and everything else.
Hmm.
You're absolutely right. Autofocus was great in the cameras that preceded everything that we have right now. It was a different kind of autofocus where a lot of us just did uh, shoot, focus, and recompose. And there's nothing
Hmm.
wrong with that as well. But when it comes to speed of autofocus, for those that are in the bird and wildlife community, it absolutely has made a difference for them. Not that they couldn't get a photo, but now you can get so many more. So, on the point
Hmm.
of making people lazy, I don't think that gear makes anybody lazy. I think that they're lazy to begin with. And, it's just the
Maybe.
way it is. You know,
Chuck
gear
is
isn't
preaching now. Chuck is preaching.
gear is not going to change that. But on the side of all the new gear and everything that comes out, uh, I don't think anybody's saying that we couldn't make it today if we didn't have all these new cameras coming out. But Roy made a point earlier saying it makes things easier, and it does. That's
Hmm.
another thing about pro level gear. You have all those external buttons, knobs, and dials and everything. So it's speed of photography then because everything's right there at your fingertips rather than having to hunt through menus. And that's one of the things you get with pro equipment is more external control rather than menus and such.
Hmm.
Now, on
Hmm.
the last point I want to make, and I'm not doing this to aggravate anybody, but I think we can all live together if we just
Hmm.
accept this. There are those like me that will just
Hmm.
collect gear. I'm not a pro
Hmm.
photographer. I
Hmm.
enjoy what's coming out, what's new or whatever. I love it.
Hmm.
Do I need it? I don't need anything I have. I could have stuck with my D5000 years and years ago and taken photos today. No doubt about that.
Hmm.
But I don't want to punish those that just like gear, nor do I want to punish those that don't care about all the new gear. I'd like for us to finally be able to live together in, yeah, he likes buying the newest and he's whatever, or he wants to go back to film days or whatever. It just, and get back to what you're saying, what you guys are saying is it's the final product that counts. That's it, period. And you can't edit bad photos to make them good, just like you were saying, Baron.
Hmm.
Editing definitely will move photos into another level, up to another level often with what we have today with editing software and everything else. But there
Hmm.
are some things that editing will never be able to fix. And somebody brought it up: bad focus, bad composition, bad exposure. You're only going to get so far if those three are bad. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that
Hmm. Hmm.
and hope the
I think,
community, would agree that we can all, have a good
yeah,
time. And it's
there's
fine
room
for
for everybody.
yeah, it's fine for us to,
Hmm.
you know, uh,
Well,
aggravate somebody, not aggravate, but just in fun, kid your fellow
Hmm.
photographer about what they shoot and
well,
what camera they use or what lens they use or whatever. But it should be just in
Hmm.
fun because there's
Hmm.
plenty of gear out there. It all works well. But the big thing is if you want to be great, you got to learn the basics of
well,
photography.
I would even go a step further than what you're saying. First of all, before I say that, I want to say like there's nothing wrong whatsoever with collecting gear and liking the new stuff and
Right.
wanting to get the
Right.
new stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact,
Right.
I feel that way
Hmm.
too a lot. Like
Hmm.
it's not to say
Hmm.
that I
Hmm.
don't, and it's not to say that Ronald doesn't,
Hmm.
because you'll notice
Hmm.
that Ronald has a Z9 and he's got a bunch of S-line lenses. So he obviously gets the new stuff, and he's obviously looking forward to it. There's nothing wrong with
And a
that.
lot of lighting. And a lot of
Yeah.
lighting.
Of course, and the lighting. I guess to further the point that you're making, Chuck, though, about we should all get along, I totally agree with that completely. I think the thing about the photography community that I mean, certainly everyone here knows this. It's sort of a dying breed, if anything. It's a small community, and it's perhaps smaller than it's been in a long, long time because, well, we all know that there's various reasons. But the fact is, we share a love of a certain craft, whether you're a hobbyist or a pro or both, because every pro is a hobbyist of sorts as well. And we share the love of this craft. And honestly, whether you shoot a Sony or a Canon or a Fuji or an Olympus or OM, whatever they call it now, or a Nikon or anything else, it doesn't actually matter. If you have like a pinhole camera, you're participating in the art that we all love. And you're sort of like a brother in a way. It's funny how like siloed and it's gotten with this whole the brand wars. And I think YouTube has actually flamed that fire. I don't think it was nearly like this before YouTube. Like I remember back when I was shooting I started photography in the 80s in my high school classes, like early high school. People had Canons and Nikons and Olympuses, and nobody actually cared what camera you had. Yeah, it didn't actually like, I don't remember that being the subject of a talk. I mean, people would say, oh, that's a nice, oh, you have a nice Nikon. Oh, you have a nice Canon. Oh, you have a nice whatever. And that'd be it. And then it was all about the shots and like, did you do the assignment and how well did you dodge and burn your shot in the dark room? And I just, it's kind of silly now that like, we do get, I think that people make a decision to buy something and then they have to justify their decision. And some people think that that's what I'm doing on Photography Discourse, because it does. If you watch my channel, I do talk mostly about Nikon, and sometimes I'll compare Nikon to Sony and Canon or other brands. And I'll kind of point out where I think Nikon has edges over them. And sometimes I'll also admit when I think they don't. But my point isn't really just to glorify Nikon for no reason or anything. I'm just talking about the brand I know the best, although I have experience with the others as well. And I'm also promoting the positive points that I think are in the system that I deem to be not talked about very much on the internet. So it's kind of like a balancing act. Like you have plenty of channels out there, as we all know, that love to bash Nikon and tell you why they're so bad and why they're about to go bankrupt. And all of those things haven't happened. And, you know, if you were to listen to some of the
are not going to happen.
And they're not going to happen. No, they're not going to. But the big channels we're talking about, Nikon going out of business. I mean, we all remember that from, you know, the last couple of years. And today, you know, and they've taken steps. They have restructured. They've downsized their expenses and certain things like that. But today they're in the black. They're doing, you know, fairly well, and they're making sales, and their stock is up. So they're not about to go bankrupt. That notion is nonsense, and they never really were. I think Ron's point's good. The Japanese weren't going to let Nikon go bankrupt. They're actually very proud of that company. And business in Japan is very, very different than in America. And these companies are much more associated in Japan than you think they are. Canon and Nikon and Sony are not adversarial the way internet, the way they
very tight.
Yeah, very tight. The way that, like, in YouTube, you'd imagine these guys are like mortal enemies that hate each other. But in Japan, they all go to lunch together and hang out. So it's just ridiculous. Like, this whole thing is
the executives, the top executives.
Yeah.
The top executives, they're very close.
Yeah, they're very, very close. It's a friendly competition, but they all realize that the other guy is kind of important for their own survival. So it's not a case. It's not that Canon wants Nikon to go out of business or Nikon wants Sony, like that. That's not the case. They all want each other to be around. They serve different niches. There's some level of behind the scenes where they actually kind of know. I mean, they don't necessarily know exactly what the other company is putting out next, but they definitely have a good sense of what the other guys are putting out.
Absolutely, they do.
Yeah. And and you know, and they're all, and if they can all be friendly, and if they can all go to lunch together and hang out, then why the hell can't we?
Yeah.
It's a great point. It's a great point.
You
And that's
know,
what, I'm
and
doing my
what's
best to rectify that here. Now, I got you guys off topic, but I don't want to steal what you guys wanted to talk about, but I know this is a good conversation too.
thank you,
So,
Chuck.
no,
Not at all.
Thank you, Chuck. Every time we get on here with you, Chuck, we always have these kind of conversations where they get good and we get interesting and they go back and forth, and I love it.
yeah.
But let me go here to Baron's point and to your point, Chuck. I just signed up 2 new clients, 2 new students. Now watch this, Chuck, and watch this, Baron. I think they're Generation Z. They're 20 years old. That's Generation Z. Is that Generation?
I don't know which generation's which anymore.
Oh, brother,
I think it is Z. I think it might be
know
the
that.
end of Z. It might be the end of Z by now. I don't know. How old are they? 20?
Okay, 20.
I think it's Z. I think it is.
I think that's Z. So here's what I'm saying. Watch this, Chuck. And they're both cannon shooters. They said to me, "We love your work, Mr. Pollard. We're inspired by it." The young lady called me with her mom and said, "Mr. Pollard, the mom said, my daughter wants to train with you. Do you offer training and teaching and mentoring one-on-one for photography?" I said, "I do." I said, "I don't do it a lot because I'm busy, but I can work you in and make it happen for us." And so this young lady came and she signed up. Canon. The other young lady, Chuck and Baron, that is at SCAD in Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD.
Okay.
And she's a cannon shooter. And she called me yesterday and said, "Mr. Pollard," because they take about 1,500 students a year at SCAD, I think. And these are amazing, talented artists from all over the world that go to SCAD, right? And the young lady said, "Mr. Pollard, it is so good to be in a class with 40 photographers that shoot Nikon, Canon, Sony, Fuji, and OM." She said she saw 2 OMs there. So as Baron and you and I, and we've all said, the goal, we can all do this together, as you mentioned, Chuck. So there is room for every type of person. The expectation for every type of person, Baron, is not the same. The expectation when you're dealing with a professional versus an amateur versus a hobbyist are different. But we all can learn and grow together. Absolutely. We can do that. And that's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with expectations being different. There's a whole lot right with expectations being different. Yesterday, Chuck and Baron, I took up my 400, my new baby, my new girlfriend. And by the way, I named her Lulu, my new girlfriend, my 400, 4.5, Chuck. That's her name, Lulu. Okay, Chuck, you got that?
Okay.
I took her out and I put the 200, I put the 2-time teleconverter on it to photograph ducks, to photograph birds. Why? Just to practice, guys, just to see what that lens does, how it responds. And so I'm saying that because as we go back to the thing we were talking about, the licensed image, it's the practice, guys. It's the hours, it's those unseen hours of work that helps with some of this growth and some of these opportunities, guys. So I know that's a gumbo, Chuck, coming from Louisiana like me. I know that's a gumbo or jambalaya, but I wanted to get back to our original point.
Yeah. Well, you made it well.
Yeah.
So photography is
Michael.
Photography is just a passion and a love, I think, for a lot of us. And you can't. I just feel like sometimes I had comments on my channel where someone's like, "Oh, well, you're just being a fanboy," and if that's like that actually, like, I think about that because that's not really my intention at all. I feel like Nikon's been underrepresented. I think Nikon's been underrepresented on YouTube. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think the Canon and Sony have done a much better job.
Okay.
Canon and Sony have done a much better job of recruiting the youth. I would say getting younger people to enter their brand, and that has caused. And because younger people are the ones on the internet, so they don't really have as much familiarity with Nikon, and they don't know it. It doesn't. So it tends to get pushed aside, and then you have certain big channels, you know, which don't need to be named, but I think we all know who I'm talking about, and they kind of tend to like exaggerate Nikon's flaws and under exaggerate the other flaws. And so as a reaction to that, I sort of got on the internet to say, well, some of this isn't the case, and the Nikon gear is actually exceptional, and I'm using it as in a professional capacity. And so are many others, like Mr. Ronald Pollard, and he's getting Google to want his photos. I don't know how many of these guys on the. I can tell you this: a couple of the big channels out there that tend to bash Nikon, they've never had a license from Google. None of them, any of their photography. So I just think it matters, like, you know, to keep things in perspective. But that said, I go back to my other point. I think all of the gear is exceptional. If you can't get the shot with any of the modern gear from any brand, then you're just not a good photographer.
It is so true. That is so true. And I say that all the time. You can't pick a bad camera. I know that there are people that are fanboys that want to fight over that, but that's the truth. You can't pick a bad camera today. It's all in what you like, you know, aesthetics, feel, ergonomics, your perception of the ergonomics. But everybody offers, you know, enough in their cameras that anybody could pick up any brand and go shoot. I don't mean, you know, some kind of a challenge where here you go, take my camera and go, because I don't know your camera. It may take me a few minutes. But my point is that if you're into any brand, all of them do extremely well now. And
Chuck, Chuck, you're telling the truth. You're telling the truth, Chuck. You're telling the truth.
Yeah, I know. And I want to defend Barron here a little bit. Not that he needs you know, me to defend him.
I can use all the help I can get, Chuck.
On the point of, you know, you know, being on YouTube, one of the issues is everybody sees you on a screen. They hear you for a few minutes or however long you're on, and then that's it. They don't know who you are or anything about you or anything else. And they make a decision about your personality and everything about you based on that one small little interaction and whatever you're saying. And then they take it out of context. And when I say take it out of context, I'm not talking about within that brief moment that they heard you, but in the overall context of what you preach or do or whatever and say. And yes, you know, you were talking about people may have thought you were a fanboy or whatever. No, I understand exactly what you're saying. You know, I was called that and everything else. And on top of that, the petulant child, which I am. I wear that brand proudly, the petulant child, when it comes to Nikon and ranting about Nikon. But it's not about destroying anybody else or any other camera brand out there. And as you mentioned, I think it is a YouTube thing, because we didn't have this platform that was live, and it was so, you know, there's so much information out there on YouTube. And going back to talking about those that may have not given Nikon a fair shake, often, I don't know if it's fanboyism on the part of whatever brand they're preaching, or if it's just business. And when I say that, I mean, there are YouTube channels that is their livelihood. That is their business, if you will. And you know, you'll do whatever it takes to drive business to your store. And I think often that's what Nikon just fell into that gap, you know, early in the mirrorless realm. And it became the whipping post for everybody. Everybody jumped on the opportunity. I don't think most of those people really believe half of what they say, but it drives people to their channels.
So one of the reasons.
May I say this, guys? Go ahead. I have been given gear. Go. See what happens when you get all our blood gets going. Go ahead, Ron. See what happens? I have been given gear by Sony not once but twice, Chuck and Barron. I don't talk about it much, because I'm not a part of trying to be toxic or whatever. I have had, I have played with their gear. Like I said, not once but twice. Their latest mirrorless stuff. It made me glad to be a Nikon shooter. Sony and Canon too. My friends, my friends, close friends that I love dearly for 30 years worked for Canon. He asked me, he asked me to photograph him on his Canon. He gave me one day and said, I need you to make a portrait of me that I can use for Canon corporate. He gave me 2 lenses. In 3 hours, I knew exactly what to do with that camera. And then we made his branding images, not with Nikon, but with his Canon cameras. I still, and I'm saying that to say to you, these are conscious decisions we're making with full knowledge, not because we're not using other people's brands. Two of my other students have used what they call that, Fuji. I played with the XT4. I played with the XT3, had fun with it, had a great time with it. I just recently, I'm wearing this shirt called Help Portrait. I just recently played with the GFX 100 in Nashville, shooting portraits with that. Great gear, guys. And so just like Jeff and Leslie said, it's what feels good to my hands, what feels good to my eye, what feels with the color science, all of that whole whole ergonomic thing. And having said that, all of these brands are absolutely excellent.
Yeah.
All of them are outstanding. I just chose another outstanding brand named Nikon, but all of them are outstanding. That's all I wanted to say, man.
And
Then
I would
I
just
got
say,
10 more minutes, guy, and I got to go meet this client. Mhm.
yeah, what I was going to say
Hold on.
is that with respect to what I'm doing on Photography Discourse, talking about Nikon, again, it was also a reaction. So it was a reaction to all this stuff on the internet. And also, I just didn't like the idea that like some of this information is getting out and might be influencing new generations of photographers who'd never actually experienced Nikon for themselves. They just listen to these like talking heads that are saying things that aren't even necessarily true or are half truths. So I just kind of wanted to like put a voice out there that was in that would sort of counter some of that information or disinformation or misinformation, whatever you want to call it, mistaken information. And I don't have a large platform, so I'm not necessarily reaching that many people, but I feel like voices should be out there to balance some of that. And I think you're right, Chuck. I mean, some of this is a job. It's a job for you get a Nikon or a YouTube channel that's got more than call it 100,000 subscribers plus. You're talking about now you're talking about a business. It's a business.
A
It's
very
not
deep business, brother. A very deep business too.
It's a business. Like, so everything that they tell you, you have to see through the lenses of this is a business. Why are they telling me this? And you can't necessarily count on it to be totally objective or not. So, I mean, I'm not saying that it never is. I think it can be, and I think a lot of them are on many occasions, but there certainly could be biases. And but back to the topic. I mean, someone like Ronald, and as he made, as kind of his point was made, but someone like Ronald can. And I would even say probably myself too, like, and probably a lot of you guys too, if you just did it, but you could take a different camera from a different brand. And if you just spent a few minutes with it, more than a few minutes, but like even a few minutes, you could be up and running and shooting decent stuff. If you spent like a week with it, actually using it like seriously, you would be able to do just about everything with that other camera that you could do with your own. And there's no doubt about it. So a lot of it is personal preference and use case. And we talk about use case a lot. Use case is so important in photography because a lot of times we're talking apples and oranges when we start arguing with each other about what's good. So a bird and flight photographer is going to be, ranting about this thing. And then the portrait photographer is going to be ranting about that thing and each one is telling you why this other thing is better. This other system is better. This other whatever is better. But those two things, it's like two ships passing in the night. Like those are irrelevant topics to each other, because one guy is talking about a very specific use case and the other guy's talking about a very different specific use case. And for those two use cases, there's probably very different tools that are necessary. So it's not just because it's photography that there's a right answer. There's not. It's very specific to exactly what you're trying to do in exactly what situation. So like like an example is, this is a Nikon Pro example, but I don't know if you guys saw on Grays of Westminster recently, they interviewed what's the guy's name? Oh, I can't remember, but he's the
NPS.
He's the
Head there.
NPS.
Yeah.
Yeah, the NPS guy.
McNeese.
Yeah.
Yeah, something
Ron
like
McNeese.
that.
Ron McNeese.
Yeah. So Ron McNeese, who's the NPS, the England NPS guy, I guess, or chief of NPS in England. And he was talking about how, they had taken all these cameras up to like some adverse conditions in like the Arctic or some wintry situation, and how the Z9 kept shooting and some of the Sonys failed because their batteries failed. And this is what I'm talking about when I say build quality. The build quality is better on Pro Nikon cameras because they're built with that. But
that's not an opinion, Baron. That's fact.
Right. It's not an opinion. It is fact. And that's a factual example where these other cameras are failing and the Z9 isn't. But that said, that is only important if your use case requires you to shoot in extremely adverse conditions. If you're a guy who's like, okay, your Nikon Z9 did well in the Arctic Circle, but I shoot weddings in Southern California, and my Sony does great in Southern California. And the answer is, you're right. You're absolutely right. And it doesn't, that particular point, although Nikon is superior in that way, it actually doesn't matter for 99% of the shooters. So again, it's a use case. For me, the Nikon use case is the right one for me because I delineated that I made a video recently called The Case for Nikon 2023 and Beyond. And I kind of laid out objectively why I think Nikon's in a good position and why they have many, many strengths across the gambit of metrics. But that said, there's also just me. Like when I'm at an event and I'm holding my camera, I often I have two cameras on me. Usually I use the Peak Design clip system on my belt, so I can clip one camera in and have the other one, and I can clip that camera in and take the other one kind of back and forth. But I'm always having a camera in hand. So one camera is like always in my hand for the entire day. We're talking about anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 hours. And I can tell you, like, holding on to that Nikon feels good. And with the Sony, it doesn't. It just doesn't. And that's not about whether the Sony takes good pictures. That doesn't even have nothing to do with that. It just it's just a fact of if I'm going to be more comfortable holding that camera, and I'm going to be able to, it's going to encourage me to do that, and I'm going to end up getting more shots because of that. So actually, but it doesn't, but then there's other people that would shoot Sony and have a million reasons why it's better for them. And those are all legitimate as well. And again, all of these cameras are so superior to anything that existed. Like even if you go like 10 years back, the new or even if you go like 5 years back, the newest cameras are so far superior to that. And that if you had like the crappiest camera of today against the best camera in 2007, the crappiest camera today is a better machine. It's just, and so, yes, like I do love Nikon. Nikon has a proud tradition and a long tradition, and Nikon has been making incredible gear since, really since the 1930s. But Canon has also been making great gear since I think just as long, maybe a little longer. And Sony makes Sony's a Goliath that makes consumer electronic products across the board. I'm just grateful that as a photographer, I think we should all just be very grateful that we live in this time where we have access to such incredible equipment for actually such a low price. I was actually making this point recently. somebody commented on my channel. I think it was a kind of a facetious comment, but like, they're like, do any of these camera manufacturers realize that like we don't have that much money to spend on this, or like this is very expensive and like we're not all millionaires, or, you know. And I thought that was a funny comment, but I actually would point out that photography was much more expensive 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Much more expensive. The cameras were like, I
It
remember
truly was.
I mean, I remember I bought my F4. I think I probably paid like, I don't know what the F4 cost when I bought it in like 87 or 88, but probably it was $1,500. But I mean, $1,500 of 1988 money, that's probably like 3,000 or 4,000 today. And then you had to buy the film. Every single time you snap a shot, you're spending money. Every snap costs money. And then you got to process all that film, and you're processing all the bad shots too. And then if you're in a dark room, you got to buy all the darkroom equipment and all the chemicals and all the paper. And a lot of that stuff is recurring cost. So the fact is, like, spending a little extra on a camera today or paying for Lightroom and Photoshop for $10 a month, that's like free compared to what we used to pay. So I think photography is actually less expensive and more accessible and more dynamic than it's ever been. And that's something that we should all be happy about and be grateful for. Like, the hobby is cheaper than it's ever been in actuality.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of people don't understand that. But the other thing too, I want to add something to that, because people will say, well, how do you afford this or whatever? Everybody's at a different point in their life. If you have you're married and you have 2 or 3 children and they're young, guess what? You know, when I was there, I wasn't buying cameras.
Yeah.
So if you were just using me as an example, if you were to look at me and say, well, yeah, it's nice to be able to buy those cameras. Well, you know what? It is, and I will admit it is, but you know, it comes at a price. Look how old I am now. Would I have loved to have been able to do all this when I was in my mid-20s? Absolutely. However, it was like little birds in the nest with mouths always turned up, wanting to be fed. And that's what you have to do.
And not waiting their turn, demanding to be fed right now.
Exactly. So life has, there are things in life that will curtail you getting everything you want, of course. So don't look at somebody and say, well, it must be nice. You know what? Be happy with where you're at. I was at the time, and I could live without it then because I had other priorities. But anyway, going along with what you said, you're absolutely right, Baron, that you can't, it is cheaper. I know it's hard to believe, but it is cheaper. Even with the prices we pay, it is cheaper than it was then because of the cost of living and other things, and not cost of living, but per income per capita.
Per capita.
Yeah.
Per capita.
So, yeah. Hey, look, I am a total failure today. I am an absolute failure because you guys came on. We wanted to talk. I wanted to just kind of sit aside and let Baron and you, Ron, talk about what you guys wanted to talk about. And somehow I got my big mouth in the middle of it and kind of derailed us.
No, it's okay.
So I know you have
Chuck,
limited
you gave
time.
us a platform.
I know you have limited time.
You gave us
So I want to turn it back over to you guys and let you guys cover what you want to finish up with. Sorry about that, Baron.
I'm gonna say this to you too. It's real quick, guys. Everything you all saying is true. I couldn't agree more. I do believe, Chuck and Baron, that and to those in the chat and to those who are watching, I do believe that we're at a amazing time. We all can ride high with the growth of technology and the amazing equipment and machines we're being provided across the board. And it's funny how it's all relative, If we say something is bad, well, it's bad in comparison to what? Or if we say something is good in comparison to what? It's better now than it has ever been. And the thing is, and I want to get back to this, we have to be better. We have to be at least 75% is the gear that we're holding on to, that we're buying. And therein lies the difference. So when we're talking about this licensing opportunity that came from Google, from me and my studio and my family, I can promise you, ladies and gentlemen, I can promise you, brothers, this is not by accident, as was stated earlier. This is by design, because you can't luck your way into certain opportunities. Now that can happen, but as I was told, and I want the people to hear me clearly when they go watch the video. It's on my Facebook and on Barron's YouTube, Photography Discourse, and on Ronald Pollard Facebook page. They watched me. They watched. I was told by this person, they watched me and trailed me for a while to see if what was happening was the real deal. You understand, Chuck?
Oh, absolutely.
This is not by accident, as somebody talked about. And they didn't say it was an accident. 247 didn't say it, but it was highlighted because it's showing you that not giving up on your dream, your craft, your talent, and yourself does pay off. It does help. All of this technical stuff I know. See, and a lot of times we want to foo-foo that. A lot of times we want to push that to the side so quickly, when it really ought to be given the due importance of practice, commitment, and focus to being great, not just being good, trying to produce greatness. And I'm not saying I'm great. I'm trying to say my effort is great. My commitment is great. My interest and my passion is great. I just try to do the best that I can. And Barron and you, Chuck, we all try to do the best that we can. Chuck, you're doing the best you can to get this channel well over 1,000 subscribers. And you work hard at it. You work diligently at it. I look at the colors on your screen, the audio, the easiness, the love and the passion and the kindness in your voice. All of that's real, Chuck. All of that comes across. You cannot fake that. After all these months and Sundays, you can't fake that.
No,
Chuck. You can't.
No, you're right.
You can't make that up.
Giving up. But yeah, I agree with you, Ron. Hey, I've got one more thing to say, and then I will back out and let you guys finish up. Sorry, Barron. Somebody inspired me on the photo review, the stream that we did. They inspired me by saying, talking about, couldn't we do something with straight out of camera photos? And that's kind of inspired me. And based on the conversation that we've had here today, just letting everybody know, we're going to do that soon for one of the photo reviews. I mean, anybody can cheat.
Mm-hmm.
So be it. You're cheating yourself. But I think that might drive home. You have to have everything right in camera to take a photo that you're going to post. Yeah, we'll understand that it could be even better with editing and everything else, but maybe this will push some people to go into their camera and really look at exposure and composition and everything else, because there'll be, it's straight out of camera. So anyway, I just want to bring that up. You guys have inspired me to do that too. The comment and you guys.
Well, first of all, that's an interesting idea. And I have to say, like, I'm not sure how well I would do. And the reason I say that is not, it's not because I wouldn't get my exposure right and stuff like that, but I'm a raw shooter. I shoot raw files, and and raw files they don't look the best straight out of camera. That's not what they're made for.
Never have.
Right.
They never have. They never have.
They just don't. They're kind of flat. They're supposed to be, because that's how you get your dynamic range and all that.
Right.
But it's an interesting challenge, because obviously, if I was to try to do that, I guess I'd have to shoot JPEG and like make that work for me. And I'm so used to shooting raw and being able to, because as a darkroom guy that I was, I'm so used to like taking my photos into post and applying methodology in post to bring out the best in the photo. So it is a challenge to shoot straight out of camera, I think, for someone like myself.
Yeah,
May I suggest something?
I guess the reason I want to do it is just because now you're going to have to actually, go take a few photos, find out what profile with your camera, whatever camera you're using, looks best. And yeah, you can shoot JPEG and RAW at the same time, but obviously JPEG is the way to go. So you just import it, and we get to see everybody's photo. And let me say this, people, they're going to have to slow down and actually, now I got to look at the settings I'm using rather than just.
Let me say this. May I suggest something? May I suggest that you
Sure.
choose a certain genre to do that with? All right,
Okay.
because I can tell you, shooting picnics or concerts. Because somebody asked this earlier, Chuck, and I want to be true to some of the questions that were in the chat.
Yeah.
How do I get images from me to the editor? I use SnapBridge quite a bit, and I use SnapBridge quite a bit to transfer directly from the 6272 or the Z9 to my phone and send it off to my editor, to whomever I'm dealing with at that
Okay.
time. That's how I get my files, my
Mhm.
JPEG files, Baron, to them, because some of the event stuff is just straight JPEG. Some of the event stuff. So when I'm shooting for NAM, National Association of Music Merchants, they don't want raw files. They want straight out of the camera
Yeah.
photos of the artist that we're
Yeah.
photographing. You know.
Yeah. And look, and I'm not saying this is the answer to everything, but it might be fun just to do it because again, it's going to force people to look at what they're doing and their composition, especially composition, because we all have become so used to being able to crop. So anyway, just a thought.
Chuck, I think it's a good point. I think so. Jeff and Leslie, Wildlife and Nature Photography, his comment was, I would participate, but I'm not sure why. Says the best photos through history have been processed. Ansel Adams' photos straight out of camera probably were not that special. So I would address that comment. First, he's correct. And Ansel Adams was a darkroom guy. He, like, as a darkroom person, we study him extensively because he makes his photos in the darkroom. Like that's where they became what they are. They didn't start that way. He was a master of post-production. However, there's, again, this is like why I was talking about before with photography. There's not one standard that sets across the board. If you're talking about great photography, just great historical photography, that's not of a photojournalistic nature, because that's a different thing again. Then yes, post-processing is integral and is required for the best photographic images. But as Ronald just pointed out, like maybe you're shooting for that group and they want straight out of camera. They got to post, like if you're shooting for news, you're sending that to the editor like live from the field, and they're posting that stuff right away. So it really is. It's a use case, like in a weird way, it's a use case kind of thing. Again, there is a case for straight out of camera photography because of the nature of how those photographs are going to be used. If it's for photojournalism is not to be edited much. With photojournalism, you might tweak exposure a little bit, but that's about it.
I can tell you this: when I photographed the White House thing a few years ago, let me tell you this: they didn't want any post on that stuff, man. So when you go to my page and you see Selma, they in the paperwork they gave me, they wanted straight out of camera. We had to go to the room. I mean, you had 59,000 photographers out there. We had to go to the room and upload those photos directly. I had to give mine directly to the White House press lady who brought me in, who commissioned me to do that. So this is why, Chuck, I said depends on the genre. And if you choose a certain genre, you do that, because you can't cheat when you're doing some of that, as you said, Baron, some of that photography, some of that newsreel stuff. You can't cheat that. They're not going to let you get away with that, man. They don't want any of that being done.
And I don't want to do this to prove any points or anything else. I just think it would be fun. And again, like I said, you're going to have to stop and think for a second, because you don't have that luxury of being able to crop and do whatever. And I understand. I am not opposed to editing at all. I am all for editing. Don't get me wrong. But just maybe it would be fun just to say, okay, here it is. We want to see what you took, not what you edited. And just
that's great, Chuck. That's great. I think
it would force people to slow down a little bit and think, well, wait a minute. So anyway, that's just the idea.
Chuck, I like that, Chuck.
Well, the other thing is when you're learning photography, like it's often really good to have like little exercises, like it's like a thought experiment, except for photography. So your idea is like, okay, well, we know editing's really important and we know editing can make a shot, but let's see what you can do out of camera. You know, it's just like that's the parameters of the game we're playing, right?
Yeah,
And it's a good,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Just for the fun of it. But I think some people will get something out of it too, not realizing how much they rely on the fact that in the back of their mind, they're editing the photo as they're taking it. I do that.
Yeah. And it's a great way to shoot. I know. And also to further that point, I mean, I was talking to the Nikon rep here in Southern California. His name's Jeff Mitchell. And he loves shooting. He shoots a lot of photos of his daughter. She's a swimmer and she swims competitively. And he shoots a lot of photos with her with like a Z9 and like the 100 to 400 or something like that. And that guy hates post-processing. He talks about this in his talks a lot, how he doesn't want to post-process anything. And so he loves using all the color profiles and the cameras and figuring out the ones he likes the best and shooting it and posting it right away or straight out of the camera. So there's definitely a use case for that.
Yeah. Well. And again, I'm not doing it to prove anything or anything else, but it inspired me thinking about it. Wouldn't that be fun just to do that? Here it is. It's raw. So anyway, we'll see. We may do that in one of the upcoming photo reviews, make that a parameter for your photos. So,
and then
Chuck, I want to see this.
Go ahead.
Oh,
go ahead, Baron.
Because I gotta go meet somebody. But go ahead.
Okay. No, if you got to go, Ron, go ahead and make your point, man.
One of the most amazing things I ever saw in my life, speaking to this point about coming straight out of camera, was going to a Joe McNally workshop. Being able to watch him take the photo and look at it immediately. And my jaw just dropped. I'm like, no. I refuse to believe that he didn't edit that between that camera and this computer. So I couldn't believe it. The lighting, the quality, the textures, the subtleties, the tone, the nuances in tones, color tones, absolutely blew my mind. Baron, I was at the LA Forum in Los Angeles. And there were about 300-400 of us who were there with him. And we were looking at him create these amazing photos on the spot and saying to myself, when I grow up or in my next life, I want to be able to do this just like this. Yeah. I'm not there, but I'm close. I'm not there, but I'm closer now than I was back then. And that's been about 15, 16 years ago. And I watched this man just absolutely blow all of our mind. We looked at each other and just shook our head and said, there's something different about this dude, man. This dude here, he's the real deal.
Yeah.
Now, and so I'm saying that to say to you, I've seen that, Chuck, and I think that would be amazing. Baron, I've got to go. Chuck, I've got to go. No we booked a wedding last night, Chuck. We booked
great.
A very, very nice wedding. So I got to go meet with the groom. But please, everybody, may I ask him, Baron, to please go to your Photography Discourse YouTube?
Absolutely. Yes. Go check out Baron at Photography Discourse. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe we'll get a bump in your subscriptions. I'd like to see that, Baron. You deserve it, man.
I appreciate that, Chuck. I would like that would be nice. I'd like more people. I wanted to get the word out about what I was talking about, just to kind of counter the other stuff, as I had mentioned before. So obviously more viewers and people could share it. That'd be great. If they like it, they should share it. If they, but it's, for me, it's, I appreciate that. I appreciate you saying that, Ron and Chuck. Thank you so much for letting us come on to your show and do this. Yes, and I have to say, like, I have to commend you for your consistency, Chuck, in being able to run live streams every week, twice a week. That's really, really impressive that you can keep that up. Oof. And you do a great job of it.
Wow.
Well, thank you very much. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And that's the only reason I'm doing it, gentlemen. If it were ladies and gentlemen, we do have some ladies in the audience now. And I think that's fantastic. But hey, I am sorry we kind of got off subject. I know where you wanted to go, Baron, but I think it was a great conversation, and you we're welcome to try it again.
No, I don't want you to think that you didn't take us off topic. I wanted to just have a chance to mention the interview with Ronald to a wider audience, so people could have a chance to go enjoy that. And we got a chance to do that, and then that was mainly the point. And after that, it's great chatting. It's great chatting as always.
Thank you, Chuck. Again, thank you, Baron. Again, you want to see the full context of everything we're talking about? Someone please give Z Wade / She Wade, give him his medicine, please, because somebody please administer his medicine because he's out of control. And he needs help. He really does. But thank you guys so much for this opportunity. Nancy, we got to catch up one day, and Baron, we'll connect soon, brother. I got to go secure this opportunity.
And, go take care of business, Ronald.
Going, man. Yeah.
Get to work before your wife drags you off the screen.
I'll stick around for a few more.
The boss, you're right about that, Chuck. The boss is like, brother, go get my money. I told you she's my pimp, right? Didn't I tell you that?
Yep.
Go get my money. Where's my money? All right, y'all. Take care.
All right, Ronald.
Thanks,
we'll talk
Ron.
soon. Chuck, I'll stick around for a few minutes more.
All right, great. Oh shoot, where was I going? Let me change this so that we can get. Hang on a minute. There we go. So we can get comments in here. Hey, Jeff and Leslie made a comment talking about could we do it so that we have the straight out of camera and an edited version. Hey, let me think about that, Jeff, because the only reason I say that is then it turns into an editing more than straight out of camera, I think, thing. But maybe we do it once with just the straight out of camera. I think it'll be fun just to look at what everybody produces. We can all have a good time laughing at ourselves or whatever, knowing what we would have produced if we had been able to edit. And then we'll do another one where we show the before and after. I think that'd be worthwhile too. That may inspire the other side of the house, those that don't really edit, to think about, man, maybe I should, or maybe I can. So I
think that's a good idea, Chuck. I think you should do one that's just straight out of camera, and then do a different show altogether that's a comparison of straight out of camera to what is the end result of a post processing, because the post processing is really like the other part of photography. This is something I'll just say this from a professional standpoint. Like, a lot of clients don't understand. Like, they think they're paying you for the shoot. They think that they show up to a shoot, you show up to a shoot, you shoot them.
Yep.
And again, I'm talking about photographically, people, not militarily. You photograph them.
Right.
And then you send them photos and it's all over, and they paid you for that time. And they don't understand that that's actually not how it works. That once you're done photographing them, your job just started. Like, it really just started. I'll spend often much more time in post-production on a job than I did shooting it.
Yeah. Most people think they come right out of camera like that.
Yeah.
You're right. They don't consider the amount of time that you spend editing and putting things together for them for the final product. You're absolutely right. And I'm all about editing. I believe in it.
Yeah. I remember, in 2019, I went on a trip with the Tamron, Tamron, the lens manufacturer.
Right.
I went on a God, what did they call it? I was a member of their group because I had purchased several Tamron lenses back for my F-mount cameras back then, and they went on this expedition to oh God. I'm just so Sedona.
I'm like that every day. Don't feel bad.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate that. They went to Sedona, Arizona, where the red rocks are, and it's beautiful there. And we did, we photographed a lot of that stuff, and it was really interesting. And I remember at the time somebody was saying like, oh, I I think you should just be able to shoot and not have to edit anything. And I was just like, well, I don't understand that, because someone said like, well, if you start editing it, it's not a photograph anymore. And I also don't agree with that either. I think, again, it depends. Like, to me, my photography, I consider to be like an art form. So I'm not a photojournalist. And people who think that you have to shoot something and it has to be straight out of camera or it's not legitimate, I disagree with that. I think that's like no one complain, like a painter who's painting a scene, like if like Monet was painting a scene, you don't know if he didn't add a few extra like lily pads to the pond that weren't actually there.
No,
Like
you're right.
you don't actually know what he was painting. Like he's painting a scene, but you weren't there to see the scene. You have no idea what he embellished and what he didn't. And it's the same thing with photography. I think, strictly speaking, if you are a photojournalist and you're doing photojournalistic work, then that's different. That should be as true to life as possible. But that's a specific case.
Right.
But if you're shooting portraiture that's intended to be of an artistic nature, then I don't see anything wrong with manipulating the photo. And in my instance, for example, I'm shooting in Southern California a lot. We have blue skies. Well, we don't this week, or the last month has been crazy. It's been raining like cats and dogs, which is very unusual. But generally speaking, we have blue skies. And not only do we have blue skies, we have like blue skies that are devoid of any clouds. It's basically just blue. And I can tell you right now, that's a boring, boring, boring sky in my photo.
Yes, sir, it is.
It looks terrible. It's like you have this beautiful photo of someone, and it might be in a park, and there might be a kind of like the greenery around and like all kinds of color. And then you have this just negative space of sky that's just blue and boring. And so I often manipulate my skies, and I'll add clouds, or I'll add elements to the sky that weren't actually there in the photo.
Yep.
And I can tell you right now, the photo looks a lot better.
Right.
It looks a lot better. But some people are like, oh, well, those clouds weren't really there. So that's, cheated.
That's always a funny comment, I think, when people do that. And we've had that discussion in here in a live stream talking about, do you replace skies, and talking about other things in as far as editing goes. And, a lot of people say, no, it should be as it is. Well, you have one day to go shoot, and it's bright blue sky, no clouds, no anything. What are you going to do? You're going to just produce a so-so photo? I mean, I don't understand the whole complaint about replacing skies or whatever, or anything else when it comes to editing. Even, and I'll go into this real quick, it's something I don't like and I won't do, is when we start talking about frequency separation in skin. And I see a lot of photographers that go, whole hog into frequency separation to smooth the skin. And I will tell you that it does look pretty, but it doesn't look real to me. And I don't care for that. But you know what? If somebody wants to do it, I think that's fantastic. Go for it. Because if you're a pro photographer, most of the time your clients are picking you based on what they see of your work. And so that brings us full circle back to, talking about your editing process or what you do, Baron. They expect that same quality or artistic approach to how you're going to shoot them, but they don't know that doesn't come straight out of camera. So now we're back to the amount of time that you spend. They don't always appreciate the fact that this is going to take a while or whatever. I don't know. Or this is what you're buying. This is what you're purchasing.
Well,
is my time, not just to take the photo. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. People that would come to me, like sometimes off of Instagram, for example, as one channel of the way people come, they want their photo to look like the photos I'm posting. So they're looking for that. Now they don't necessarily know how that's done, and of course they don't know how that's done, because that's why someone has to do it for you, right? It's kind of like any other service. Like you go to someone who knows what they're doing. But some people were surprised when Yeah, it's two different camps in again, the photographic world is so split. It's so subjective, and it's actually what you like versus what you don't like. And then there's genre, and then there's use case. And like,
Right.
again, that's why there's so many different facets to this whole thing that you can't talk, two photographers can't just talk to each other about photography without contextualizing what they're saying.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we get into so much trouble. I think we get into a lot of trouble with people getting angry at each other or disagreeing or like getting, kind of.
Well, you just reminded me something else. It's another pet peeve that I have, and I'm sorry, I got to bring it up. How many of you in the audience, and I'll answer from my, well, you'll know where I stand. Look at a photo and immediately critique it rather than just look at a photo. How many of you look at a photo and somebody says, do you like it? And you immediately go into a critique. Well, I like it, and you start critiquing it. I mean, that's our problem sometimes is we feel like we've got to immediately critique something rather than just appreciate it, whether it's a photo or anything else. But it's really big in the photography community. We're quick to critique, slow, if even not doing it, to just say, I appreciate the work. I like it, period. And let it go at that. There's a time for critique, and then there's a time because that's what your clients do. They don't critique it. I mean, unless there's a blatant garbage can sitting right next to the bride, I can understand why she may bring that up. But my point is they don't critique it. They just like it or they don't. And we're real quick though to show our expertise as photographers and start talking about what's negative. And that's what we're doing. If we're critiquing, think about it. We're pointing out what's negative, at least in our eyes, about the photograph rather than, I like it.
And critiquing is also relative and different depending on the critiquer. So usually like clients are more interested in just how they look in the photo.
Yes.
So like, it doesn't, like if the photo, like there's lots of times where there's been photos that I personally that I've shot of somebody. And this is more environmental portraiture. I'm not talking so much about like studio portraiture, which I do as well, but that's different because then it's just the person in a backdrop, say, but I'm talking about like environmental portraiture where you're out in the world and I'm using lights out in the field, and but there's actually like the world around them exists and you can see the environment that they're in. So I'm looking at things when I shoot that. I'm considering the entire frame. I'm considering the elements that are in the background and how they, contrast and complement the subject and the colors and you go on and on and on. And then they'll look at the photo and they'll be like, oh, I love the way I look in this photo. And then, but I'll be like, oh, but that photo's not good because I screwed up. Like the pole's coming out of your head in that shot.
Yeah.
Like,
I hear that all the time. I hear that all the time, Baron. You're absolutely right. You're looking at it thinking, no, the garbage can's right behind you there. She didn't notice. And I think it's a wonderful thing, but I understand exactly what you're saying. They look at it. I love my expression right there. That is perfect. Nobody's ever captured my expression, and regardless of the fact that there's a tree branch going in one ear and coming out the other.
Right. Right. So it's just funny how and sometimes I'll be like, well, I love this shot. And then she'd be like, oh, I like that, but they don't like it as much. Right. Because because for them, they're just looking at themselves, and for themselves, they preferred themselves in the other shot. And that's just funny to me but it's not a holistic photo. Like if I showed the two photos, in my opinion, if I showed the two photos like on this channel to the viewers and to you, you guys probably would choose the photo that I chose, is my guess.
Yeah.
Okay. But the person who's actually the photo of chose the other one. And then you have to ask yourself, if they're the client, well, who's right? You know what I mean? Like there's different truths. There's different, there's an objective answer. I think objectively, the one I chose and the one we would all choose is perhaps better, but subjectively it doesn't matter. And if they're the paying client, or even if they're just the person you're photographing, they kind of what their opinion matters. You know,
but I just thought of something. Are we worried about what other photographers will say if we've delivered a photo that they absolutely love, but you know that it's not a great photo? Is that what bothers us?
I think it is a little bit. I mean, in my case, I don't want to put out work that I wouldn't want to stand by. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little, but on the other hand, if someone's, you know, I'm not going to say no to a person who says that's the photo I want. But you know what I mean? You can't.
Yeah. But I think this is the point I try to make all the time is we get wrapped up, you know, and looking at a photo and talking about what's wrong or whatever. And any critique, you're talking about what's wrong with the photo in your eyes. I mean, there's no way around that. When clients fall in love with photos, or you can tell people that, you know, well, you know what, 9 out of 10 photogs that see the photo say, well, it needs this or should have done that or whatever. And you tell them, well, the client loved it. Isn't that all that matters?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not getting paid by photographers. No photographers paying me to take photos of somebody's wedding, you know, so they can critique it. Although I would accept that. That would be fine if you guys want to do that. I'll go out and shoot weddings and you can pay me for it, for just the ability to critique and chop it up. But my point is we lose sight. I'm not a pro photographer. And if I was shooting for a living, I would be really sensitive about this subject when people come in and say, well, it's this and that's wrong or whatever. Hey, you know what? They love these photos. Yeah. And just like you said, I suggested this package, and here are the ones that they selected, and they want these. But do we want to make a bad name for ourselves in the photography community with other photographers by allowing the client to have what they want? That's probably a better question right there.
Well, I mean, and in some ways, I would say also in some ways, a serious hobbyist is more scrutinizing about what the work he puts out than the pro can actually is allowed to be, because the hobbyist who's like a serious amateur hobbyist who's like doing work that's high level can really scrutinize what he's going to show the world. Right. He decides completely what he puts out and what he doesn't put out. Whereas if you're shooting professionally, you may not have a choice because, as you say, the client might be like, that's the one, I want it. And you're like, well, I don't, and you're like, well, I don't like that one. In your head, you're thinking that, you know, but they're like, that's the one. You're not going to say no. So, right. So it is interesting. Like in some ways, the serious amateur can like really,
but doesn't that make you successful as a photographer? I mean, as a paid photographer, doesn't that make you successful when the client says, I love this? Then whether you meant to or not, you just gave them maybe even more than they wanted or expected.
Correct. I mean, yes, I have had, I mean, this is just an objective truth. I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back. I've had many people tell me that I've taken the best photograph of them that they've ever had taken.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, I just do what I do. And if they love it, that's great. And I'm appreciative that that's true. But the best photograph of them that's ever been taken.
Well, a lot of people feel that way. You know, I'm
not sure that the one they think is the best photograph that's ever been taken of them is necessarily the one I thought was the best photograph of the day.
Right.
So
we do that as photographers because we're looking at it differently. My wife says, you know, I would edit photos for some people and she'd say, well, that looks fine. No, it doesn't. I still need to do this, and this, or whatever, blah, blah, blah. She said, well, you're just a perfectionist. Well, that's what we are, you know, whether we like it or not. And there are times when we'll say, oh, enough is enough. You know, I'm giving up. This is it. This is the end. Here it is. This is the photo. But clients, they either like it or they don't. And they don't know any better until they see better. But as long as they're happy, there you go. That's, you know, and then we can fall back on, well, I want to give them the best product that I can. But if they like it, I mean, what more can you give them?
They're not concerned with the technical elements of the photo. They're mostly concerned with how they look, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And you're right. I noticed that one of your viewers, Nancy, had talked about. She said, she says, I've had clients to ask that their tattoos be removed from their wedding photos.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. I've also had models who've asked me to take their tattoos off. Tattoos come off a lot. Makes you wonder why some of these people are getting these tattoos when they don't even want them seen. But
yeah,
but that's a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, and the same thing for women. I heard a conversation. This has been about 7 years ago, between a couple of photographers talking about editing photos and minimal editing. Blah blah blah. They're not going to interfere or whatever. I haven't. Look. And I don't want to sound like a misogynist here, but I haven't met a woman yet that said, "Oh yeah, please capture all my flaws, make sure they're actually apparent and visible for everybody to see." No, on the contrary, it's usually, especially if it's middle-aged women, is, "Can you make me look younger?"
Well, yeah, but I mean, and I would go a step further to say, like, I don't think it's I mean, women certainly do feel that way, but I don't think it's just women at all. I mean, even myself,
you're right.
I don't like being photographed. Just to be clear, like, I think it's funny that, like, and I think a lot of photographers might be that way as well, where I don't like it. Like, when I look at photographs of myself, I'm always like cringing. Not because the photograph's bad or the photographer was bad. I just don't like how I look.
I agree with you.
I'm guilty of the same thing that the clients are guilty of, because I'm looking at myself and I'm like, oh, I hate the way I'm smiling so big that it gives me crow's feet. I look terrible in that shot, and it's just funny that, like, yeah, I think that's just human nature. That's just human nature.
Yeah, I think a lot of photographers feel that way, that they'd rather be on the backside of the camera. I know I'm the same way. I don't care. And here I am on YouTube, which maybe I can get to blur my face out or something. No, I've accepted it. I am who I am, and that's that.
That's the big challenge. I think I need to tell Ronald. I say, Ronald, you need to take a portrait of me, and I'll take a portrait of you.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Something like that, because I've seen good shots of there every so often I see a shot of me that I like, and I'm like, wow, I like how I like that shot. But yeah, it's often the case, that I don't. And I think that might be common among photographers. I don't know. I think it might.
Look, there's a million ways to make people look better. I'm not going to go into all that other than editing. Okay. I understand that, but isn't that our job? Especially for people that are getting a portrait, is to make them look the best they can.
Exactly.
We have a lot of tools to do that. Posing, which is probably the weakest part of any photographer out there. Not any. There are some that are great, but the majority of us are weak at posing. That's why we watch all these posing seminars and posing tutorials and things like that. But anyway, posing and lighting, especially now lighting, a lot more difficult with natural light to do. Not impossible, but a lot more difficult. But lighting are so critical to making them look as good as you absolutely can. So then the next step is what? Then comes editing. And so anyway, I'm in agreement with those. If somebody says, "Hey, can you remove the bags under my eyes?" I'm going to do it. That's what they want. I'm not worried about what other photographers are going to say. I'm going to give them what they want. And anyway, so
we get funny,
into these
like a photographer, a colleague of mine who actually she's my partner in wedding photography. But business partner. We're not, socially together. We're just friends. But she also shoots headshots and things like that. And she had this older gentleman got a shot that she did a photo session with, and he had gray hair, but he also kind of had the bags, and he looked, like an older guy, which is fine. Like, he was an older guy. But he wanted to look young, and this is a man now. So now I'm just to point out that men do this, not just women. And so she writes to me because I am a little more advanced than she is at editing. And she writes to me and says like, hey, Baron, can you, I'll pay you if you can edit this photo for me. And I don't think, I don't remember if I even took any money from her, but maybe a little bit, but I can't remember. But anyway, the guy wanted it. I turned the guy's hair like back to being brown. I like removed most of the bags, and like he ended up, I mean, the guy literally looked like he was 25 years younger. Like, and it didn't look fake. Like if you saw the photo, you might actually think this is a younger guy. And I sent it back to Holly, who's my colleague, and she was like, oh my God, this is so ridiculous, like laughing, and like we both thought it was ridiculous because it didn't look like him anymore. It did. It looked like him, but it looked like him if the shot was taken 25 years ago, not now, And then she sent it to the guy, and the guy loved it. He loved it. Like he thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, well, where are you going to post this? Because if you're going to put this up and act like this is you today, people are going to be in for a big shock when they meet you.
Yeah,
because but he loved it. So
no, you're right, and that's a good point too. Is you've got to explain to them, look, if it's something that's especially in younger people, if there's a problem with maybe pimples or a bruise or something, yeah, absolutely, those are temporary. I'll do that for you, but understand if you want me to remove a scar or something else, understand that photo is not going to represent you. And you may have people that look at it and go, well, wait a minute, there's something different, or, hey, it's obvious. Hey, you don't have this giant scar on your chin or whatever. But again, though, if that's what you want, that's what you get. If it's within my ability to do it, there you have it. But I'm not a pro, and it's easier for me to say that than maybe others.
Well, so to that point, I'll hold that for a second. But to the point about removing the scar, like you're right. Like a lot of times when I'm editing stuff of some of the models and things that I'm shooting, I'm wondering like, well, there's obviously certain things to remove. Certain like blemishes are always stuff you remove, things like that. But then there's also like birthmarks that are more of a neutral, kind of a gray zone. And sometimes, a lot of times, I just have to reach out and be like, "Is this something that you identify with, or is this something that you don't want in the photo?"
Right.
And I've had mixed answers. The answer, it's not always the same. It's kind of 50-50 depending. But as far as being like a pro goes, I would also I love, as I pointed out earlier, like the amateur photographer who's high level can more consistently put out high level work probably than a pro can, because he's selecting all the work, and the pro has to answer to the client. I think like the biggest difference between professional photography and high level amateur photography is troubleshooting. Just to be like totally clear, it's not photographic ability or talent or like how well, like, because I remember like I'd look at like even now, but I'd look at photography, pro work, supposedly pro work, and and this is even years ago, and I'd be like, man, I can do that. I do stuff better than that. I'm like, why is he a pro? And I'm, but the truth is, it's not, being a pro doesn't mean you're putting out the best work and your work is better than anyone who's not a pro. That's not what it means. Right. It has nothing to do with that. Nothing. Like there's like, I've seen some of the most amazing work I've ever seen has been from amateur photographers. And by amateur, it just means they're not doing it as a profession. They might think no, let's make a distinction. They are experts, but they're not professional. There's a difference.
Yes.
Because
I agree with that.
Yeah, well, we use the word professional incorrectly in our society at this point. Professional means you do something as a profession. It doesn't mean that you're good. We always associate professional with good because of professional sports. I think this is my theory, because to be in a professional sport, you have to be incredible, right? You have to be incredible at what you do. And so this term, oh, he's a pro, has kind of come into our vernacular as meaning he's an expert.
I agree.
right? But actually, it doesn't mean that. Professional just means you do something as a profession. And
see,
you
and
may be,
that's my definition exactly. Go ahead, keep going,
right.
preach it, man. I want to
So
hear
a
it.
lot of people say like, oh, well, it doesn't, you're like, I'm, I shoot just as well as a professional. And I'm like, and I haven't seen that person's work, but I'm sure they probably do, or at least some people do. A lot of people do, because being a professional, like, I would say that there are amateur photographers that are experts, like especially like birds and flight photography.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
there's not a lot of pros that do bird and flight photography because it's very niche. I think that, I mean, there used to be probably for like very specialized magazines, and to this day, like those guys still exist. But I'd say probably like 99.9% of the shooters are doing it because they love it. And it's something that they love to do. And they love to, shoot the birds and maybe blow the shots up and put them on their wall or share them with their friends
right.
or whatever. And like a lot of guys who do that on the regular, I would say are like experts, and so you could say like, so in the vernacular, I would say they're pros, but
Yeah,
they're not
yeah.
professional. They're not getting necessarily paid. So they're experts is what they are. And
I've
so of
brought
course
that up
their
many
shots are
times.
incredible.
That is my definition of a professional. It's a profession that you work in, and it really doesn't have anything to do with quality. You
Right.
can be a professional plumber and be terrible, but it's your profession or whatever. But yeah,
Right.
I agree with you 100%. And Nancy made a point here. This is another comment she said. She would rather hear the term he or she is an excellent photographer rather than a pro. I think that's probably much better. But Nancy, she posted this, and this is another, this again goes into my comment about posing. And there are ways to pose people with, maybe they're heavy or whatever, short of stature. I don't know. But, and it's difficult. And how many people really practice at that too, to do that? Because it's difficult to give them a flattering photo or a photo that they consider flattering. And there are people that have to get the photo taken. They have to, for one reason or another. And you're forced with now being the photographer to make them look their best. And go ahead.
No, I said Nancy, she had written a comment. She said, I had one client to fire me because she looked overweight in her photos. I returned her deposit even though I didn't have to. I was just happy she moved on. Plump was difficult to work with for me. And so, yeah, I mean, I brought that one up because if Nancy, if you want to cheat, like a good cheat, there's a program called Portrait Pro. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Yeah.
And they have one program. They have a couple different programs. One of them is called Portrait Pro Body. And it's a kind of a cheat way. It's an easy way to manipulate the body to like slim people out. You can do all this stuff in Photoshop, of course. It's just a lot harder. This program makes it a little bit easier to just get it done. It's more user friendly. And the only reason I suggest that is because if this person wanted to be slim or whatever, instead of losing the client, you could try that kind of thing. Although she's saying now she used Portrait Pro, but she wanted to see her. What's her comment here? She just made a comment. She Portrait Pro.
Wanted to see her dress.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but it's not just Portrait Pro I'm talking about. I'm talking about Portrait Pro Body. It's a different. They have Portrait Pro Studio, Portrait Pro Body.
So
something else.
This is where we get into some photographers feel it's an ethical issue for them to do that. Again, I don't know. Everybody has to decide what's okay for themselves. But to me, if I'm a photographer and they want something, it's not an ethical issue with me at all. It would be if I chose to do it without their asking. I understand that. But even though anybody that looks at the photos is going to say, well, you look so slim there or whatever, meaning they can see a difference. Well, that's up to the client. If the client's willing to accept that, then so be it. Then I'm willing to do what they want me to do. I mean, this is what makes this is why, again, I tip my hat to you, Baron, because you guys that do this for a living, there's so much to it rather than somebody like me that can just, I get to do what I want, actually, because nobody's paying me to do it.
Well, that's a blessed position too. I know a lot of people that shoot professionally that don't shoot for fun anymore. Like they stop. They don't want a camera in their hand ever when they're not working, and that's sad. I think because I got into this because I do love it. I do love it, like first and foremost. So I think it's too bad when it kind of does ruin, like it if you start like. The more you try to do this professionally, it does dampen some of the fun of photography, because all these other elements that don't matter normally when you're shooting for fun come into it, like marketing yourself and all the networking and all the stuff that's not about photography, but that's so important to succeeding if you're trying to get jobs. And
can I make a suggestion to all you that are pros out there that are shooting? And I understand all the things that you guys are subject to as wedding photographers, portrait photographers, and food photographers, or whatever it is that you're shooting. If the client's happy, then be happy. Don't worry about what other photographers are going to say. I mean, I think we dwell on that often, like, well, what are my colleagues going to think about this? Again, the branch growing out of the head or whatever. That's a bit ridiculous. But my point is, don't let anybody get in your head. If your clients are happy with what you're doing, of course you want to continue to improve. I get that. But just be happy. Enjoy it. Enjoy what you do. Because isn't that the biggest thrill in the world, is to make somebody else happy? I mean, don't worry about what photographer critique circles are going to do or say or whatever. They're not paying my light bill. When they start paying my bills, then they can critique and tell me what I must do. At least that's the way I would see it.
And, critics are like, it's like in the movie business, like, people criticizing a movie or critics of the movie, but they're not making the movie. It's a lot harder to make a movie than to criticize a movie. It's a lot harder to shoot, you know what I'm saying? Like it's so easy to sit back in your chair and like criticize something and like but like, do I think like every shot is what I would have done? Like even like I look at looking at Ronald's work. I think Ronald's work is exceptional, by the way. I think he's very talented, and he's great at lighting, and and I appreciate it because it's the stuff I do as well. So I know what I'm looking at. I like to think I do anyway. But it doesn't mean every shot he takes is exactly how I would have done it. It doesn't mean like I look at every shot and think, oh, I wouldn't have changed this or changed that. But I still think that it's an excellent piece, and I still appreciate it for what it is. And it goes to style. Like if I shot exactly how he did and he shot exactly how I did, then what's the point of then there would be no distinction between us.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And that's what I talked about earlier. If clients come to you based on what they see from your work, then there's a reason for that. They like what you do, how you do it, and they like it more than they like others that they have access to as well. And just be happy, do your thing, shoot your style. And again, if the client's happy, I think that's it. That's all that matters. Period. Done.
Yeah, I agree. And especially if you're shooting for jobs, then the client has to be happy because
I don't understand that whole idea. And these guys talking about the editing process, and they were talking about, well, I just turn down clients if they want me to. Okay. That's your, I have to be true to myself, and okay. I understand that too, but don't criticize others that do edit or whatever.
Well, man, if they have so much work that they can turn clients down, then more power to them.
Yeah.
I find that's a strange thing to me, because getting work in photography can be difficult. And And if somebody wants their photograph taken and they want to look a certain way, then, you know, there's nothing wrong in my eyes with doing that if that's what the client wants. I don't see it that way at all. Like, I don't think it's an ethical thing at all. Like, again, we're talking about art, you know, so I was in this, you know, just very recently, I was in this person's house and they had this big family portrait on the wall that was kind of an art piece. It was in black, kind of a black and white, or maybe a sepia tone. I can't remember, but it was a family shot of all of them. And my girlfriend was commenting, she's like, wow, you know, she looks so good in that photo, about the woman who was in the photo, whose house it was. And I remember, and I told her, I'm like, well, she does, but you realize that that's been like extremely processed. Like, you realize that a lot of work has been done to that photo. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And then she started looking at my photos. I started showing her stuff and explaining stuff to her. And then, like, she later commented to me, and we were back at that place again another time. And she's like, wow, now when I look at it, I totally see what you mean. Like, I totally understand that this is like completely doctored. But the point is, as a regular, as a normal person viewing that photo with no photographic experience, she loved it and thought she's like, wow, she looks fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it worked.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? It was a good thing. It wasn't a bad thing.
Right. And again, it goes back to that period. Hey, Baron, I love the fact that you came on. You were on today with Ron. I'm sorry that maybe I butted in a little bit and kind of got you guys off track. I know you said I didn't, but anyway, I think it's been a fantastic conversation, and just the after conversation after Ron left. We just continued to move forward, and I think everybody's enjoyed the conversation as well. I am going to have to get out of here pretty soon, but I would like to say this before I turn it over to you to say your piece on the way out, Baron. I want your vote on this as well, or thoughts. I think it's another conversation I'd like to have on the stream is, what is the state of professional photography today? I mean, considering it seems to be, it's a pretty cutthroat world right now because fewer clients out there, and the economy the way it is, and with video coming on and so many other things. Where do we stand right now in the photography world as far as a professional? And that's for everything, you know, whether it's food photography, product photography, sports photography, even though it's its own animal. But, you know, where do we stand right now? I just get a feeling that professional photography community is shrinking. I may be wrong. And maybe you guys can straighten that out for me. So I'd like to have that conversation, and I need people like you, Baron, because I'm not in the professional photographer market, and others that are, to weigh in and talk about that. So, and I wonder how much influence that's having on photographers, because it is becoming more difficult, for clients and work and whatnot. If that's the case, I just feel like it is. Maybe I'm wrong, but anyway, I'd love for you to come back and talk about that when we have that conversation, and I'll be certain to let you know if you're available. I'd appreciate your insight on it as well. You know, I want to get Vahagan in on it because he's a wedding photographer, and anybody else that's a professional in the sense that this is 75% of your income or something like that.
Right. Professional in the sense that you're doing it on a profession level, not because you're an expert or not an expert.
Right. Like, and you're not just a weekend photographer or whatever. Right. But it would be interesting to hear that take as well, because there's so much competition out there now for business, I guess. And how much are they eating up from the professional side of the house? So anyway, just a conversation to have, just trying to think of some more stuff to talk about.
Well, let me know. And that'd be a good one for Ronald to chime in on too, if he's available.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's right. Yep. Ronald, whoever, anybody that would like to join, that's a professional, again, meaning that's the majority of your income. I think it'd be a great discussion. I'd love to hear it. And maybe there's an opportunity there to think about, well, what can be done to change it, if there is anything that can be done to change it. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Baron. Thanks again for being in here today. And my apologies again for kind of steering the conversation away from where you guys wanted to be. But hey, it's great hearing from you. And before I turn it over to him, everybody go check out his channel, Photography Discourse, here on YouTube. And it's a newer channel, and he's just taking his time breaking into YouTube. It's not his main source of income.
No, I don't think it ever will be. It will never will be.
Yeah,
it'll never be my source of income, because I honestly didn't even start the channel for that reason. I don't have any intention of monetizing the channel.
Right.
That's not my point. My point was to have a mouthpiece to express some of my views and to challenge some of the existing views on YouTube vis-a-vis the gear, and also to talk about photography in general. And I welcome discussions. I'd like to do some more live stuff myself. And to that end, Chuck, I might want to talk to you offline about some of your behind the house stuff, because you do a great job here, like with how you've got your setup and how you use the program. Because Ronald and I, in our interview that we did a couple days ago, which again, I hope you guys all go and check out if you haven't seen it already. But one of the technical difficulties we had is the program we used wasn't probably the right program to do this, because we couldn't have a view that like we have right now of you and I, where we're both on the screen at the same time. It always flipped back and forth between us.
Yeah.
So whoever spoke, it would jump to that person. And so as a result, you have a lot of glitches where one person tries to say something and the other person's still talking, and it'll glitch their face in. It's distracting, and it was annoying, and I couldn't really edit that out. So I called attention to it and just sort of, forgive us, everybody, for that. But going forward, I'd like to do it a little better if I do it. I'd like to like something like what you've got going on here. So maybe we can talk about that offline.
By all means,
anyway,
yes.
Yeah, that would be great. I would appreciate that. And then I also, please let me know about, the talk, your next talk, or when you want to talk about that other stuff. That would be great. And then just to say, everyone here, and also Chuck, thank you again for having us on your channel.
More than welcome.
Doing the good job that you do, week in and week out. You're constantly here, like the warrior. And I know a lot of us watch your show, whether actively or in passing, because, sometimes it'll be on in the background if I'm doing other work or what have you. So it's appreciated, and you're appreciated, and you're a gentleman. And I do thank you for that, and for how you've conducted yourself.
Well, thank you very much. And I guess the one thing I'll agree with, one point, I have been very good at being consistent. Beyond that, I'm not so sure.
Consistency is important. I'd say consistency is at least half the battle, if not more. At least,
I've got a wife that pushes me. She's really happy that I'm doing this. So, that makes a big difference.
That helps.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I would say, it has been a good talk. I'm glad today, and I'm glad we got to discuss some other interesting aspects of the photography genre, or the photography realm, if you will, that were beyond the gear talk, although we talked to gear as well, and certainly love to do that. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
My channel is Photography Discourse. It's up on the screen. I think some of you know it. Some of you might not. I'd love for you guys to check it out.
It's in the thumbnail. It's in the thumbnail. So by all means, you guys just check the thumbnail again, all the information, and you just click on his link and take you right to Photography Discourse.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Chuck. And also Ronald Pollard, everyone. It's ronpollard.com. He doesn't have a big YouTube presence. It's not his thing, but his website's definitely worth looking at. Lots of good photography there. That's at ronpollard.com. And you'll see if you go to my channel, you can see my contact information as far as my website, but just very briefly, it's baronsilvertonphotography.com. And I'm at Baron Silverton on Instagram, which is mainly my model, my portraiture of models and things on the Instagram at Baron Silverton. But that's all over there on Photography Discourse as well. So with that, I'll just say thanks again, Chuck, and look forward to the next one. And everyone have a great day. Peace.
Absolutely, Baron. Thanks, man. Thanks for being in here. All right.
Bye-bye, everybody.
All right. I got to do my little, here you go. Mama bought me the t-shirt for Christmas just so I wouldn't forget. So don't forget to like and subscribe. I know you can barely hear me because I'm talking behind the shirt. But yes, if you enjoy what we do here, and it comes and goes depending on the subject is whatever you guys bring up. It's just us in a photography setting talking about photography, whether it's gear, technique, or whatever. But if you like it and you're going to be a consistent follower here or member here, please consider subscribing. It doesn't cost anything. They're free and it doesn't eat anything. You don't have to feed it. So I wish you'd consider subscribing. And for those that do visit on a regular basis, if you like the show, please drop a like. It makes a big difference. It's very motivating for me. And I'm doing this because I enjoy it. And I hope you guys are enjoying it. And that's the joy that I get out of it. A lot of joys in that statement, wasn't there? All right. That's all I have, folks. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the week. See everybody here Saturday night. We will be back as usual. And we'll see what happens in the news between now and then in the photography world. Thank you, Baron. I hope you have a wonderful week, buddy. And
you too, Chuck. Thank you.
That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you Saturday night.